Why won't the layout change? Good evening, people. We're afternoon, evening, whatever. It's hot in the motherfucker in the city. I don't know why it won't. Let's see. I don't know why I can't. Whatever. Anyhow, getting straight into it.
Dawson?
Very well. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for asking. Hadassah, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Yes, and yes. I'm 42, actually.
Right. And you believe in some kind of God?
In Jesus, yes.
Cool. What would be the best evidence or the best argument for the Christian God being real?
We under heat advisory.
The best evidence would be the believers.
Oh, tell me how. Because like the New Testament says that the believers are going to like behave a particular way, and that like we should know like Christians should be different from non-Christians, but I don't see much of a difference.
Right. Well, it's been 2,000 years. A lot happens in 2,000 years.
So,
I mean, are you aware of the end times theology at all?
I'm quite aware, but that doesn't actually address what I was saying. Like the New Testament says that Christians are going to behave a particular way, right? Do you believe that the Holy Spirit makes people a new creature?
I do.
Okay. Do you think that people that are new creatures in Christ are going to behave the same as non-Christians?
No, they're not.
Okay, so they are going to behave slightly differently. Okay. And what sort of behaviors would I expect from Christianity that I wouldn't expect from non-Christians?
Humility for one, and that's a big one.
Okay, let me mark this down real quick. I want to make sure I don't want to forget these bullet points. So number one, Christians should have humility. Okay, anything else?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What else?
I mean, right now, that's the one that can't be mimicked as well as the others.
Sure, yeah, but what are the others?
I mean, let's see. I mean, in this day and age, like I say, most things can be mimicked. Most people know the gospel knowledge to the degree that they know it. So, and they like it, everybody agrees that it's peaceful, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. So,
right. So what other characteristics would I expect from the Christians?
You're going to expect them to make better decisions,
like how
quicker.
Oh, like they're going to be smarter.
They're going to have wisdom because they have chosen to use a map rather than navigate their own way.
Okay, so Christians should be more intelligent than non-Christians?
They are more intelligent than non-Christians.
They are. Okay, so just make sure we're checking this off. So point number one, Christians are going to be humble. Point number two, they're going to be smarter than Christians or non-Christians.
Right. Okay.
Anything else?
I don't know. I mean, what else is there? You know the rest of it.
I'm asking you.
I'm trying to pick.
She has a YouTube channel, by the way.
Be noticed because you seem lost, particularly.
Well, I mean, you could just tell me what the Bible says. What does the Bible say Christians are going to be like?
Is that because that's the only text that you know? So we should stick to the text. Why don't you tell them? Why don't you put your script out?
You can make stuff up if you want. Listen, if you think there are other characteristics,
I might be able to. Would you be able to hang with the argument if I made stuff up right now?
Oh, I'm certain I can hang with any argument that you lay out. So.
Really? Okay.
Hadassah, remember, you're supposed to be humble. Okay. So don't.
Right. Okay.
Don't.
But I can see through you. So no, you're not going to use that shit as a leash. You gaslighting asshole.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. Don't what? There it is. What? There it is. What? Calling you out.
Point number one.
Point number one.
Point number one was humility. Humility. Do you have humility?
You don't know what you wouldn't know humility with both your hands.
That's what you said. What is
you don't know it.
Do you know what humility means?
You don't know what humility. No, you don't know what it is.
It's crazy that we started.
You don't know what it is.
We started this conversation by me simply asking you a few questions.
Yeah, and you and your fake ass.
We started this conversation by me merely just asking you a couple questions.
And I always get muted.
We started the conversation by just asking a couple simple questions. I haven't even engaged in any argumentation yet, and you're already upset calling me an asshole. Did I say? Did I say something to you?
Yes, you did.
What did I say?
You're full of shit.
What did I say to you?
Everyone here knows it and feels it. And you're acting like an asshole.
there's that humility.
I don't care about your stupid. I don't care about your stupid trophies.
There's that humility and love of Christ.
I know better. This is the love of Christ.
Do you know
here.
Do you know the?
How would you know?
Do you know
How would you know?
Do you know what the dunning-kruger effect is?
Yeah, it's some shit that used to be called something else, and then they named it after some dude. I'm old enough to remember when they just fucking called it whatever the fuck they called it, common sense or whatever.
What is it? What's the dunning-kruger effect?
Just give it to me, my guy.
You said you know what it is.
I don't sit in front of Google memorizing the definitions of things so people think I'm smart. So why don't you give us that?
Well, first of all, you said...
You go ahead and say, I can see you're more educated.
So you said that Christians are going to be smarter than non-Christians, so you should know what this is. So I'm expecting you to know what it is. If you don't know what it is, you should have said that you don't know what it is, because that would mean...
That's what you think smartness is?
So that means you would actually be humble, right? You said Christians are going to be more humble than non-Christians, which means if you're being humble people don't claim to know things that they don't actually know. So what we've discovered so far is that you're not humble.
You're a phony.
Is that you're not humble. You're not behaving like
you're a phony.
She keep unmuting herself.
Because you said that you knew what the Dunning-Kruger effect is, but now you're telling me that you don't actually know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is. So
you know what it is.
Okay. What is it? Tell me then. What is it? What is it?
What is that supposed to prove whether I know what it is or not?
Yeah, if you say you know what something is.
I'm 42 years old, bro. I got a master's degree. I got a lot of shit in here.
I'm sure you do.
So just save us some time, my guy.
So you should be able to
graciously save us some time.
So you should be able to tell me what the Dunning-Kruger effect is.
Graciously save us some time. I know you're looking right at it, so why don't you graciously save us some time?
I'm waiting for you to save time because you said you already know what it is.
I do know what it is.
Sure, what is it?
I've watched YouTube before. I did that of my own volition. I didn't hear about it, and they said, "Oh, I better make sure I know about it."
So what is it?
I actually was interested in that shit.
So what is it?
Oh, God, for fuck's sake. It is some stupid ass explanation y'all try to make up to explain why Christianity is still around, even though we can't answer your fucking questions.
Not even close to true.
That's what it fucking is. That is exactly what it fucking is. That is exactly what it fucking is.
How much money do you want to bet on that?
What do you mean money that I want to bet? That's my opinion of what that fucking thing is.
But aren't you a prophet? Did God tell you this? You're not a very good prophet.
No. That he didn't tell me that. I looked that up.
You certainly. So you're a liar then, because you didn't look it up. So you don't know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is.
My guy. It's just one
it's
of many
her
things
opinion of what it means.
You could be Googling it right now.
Fuck
You're just
what
trying
it
to make
means.
me look
It's her
weird. I'm
opinion.
making myself look weird. Just take your time and look at the fuck up.
If you don't know what it is, you should have said you don't know.
I know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is. I'm 42 years old. I pick and choose what shit I need to save in my brain.
So why can't you tell me what it is?
I remember the conclusion I drew about it, which was, what the fuck? Why are they trying to name old shit after some guy and make it seem like it's some new ass information?
That's not at all what it says.
That's what I remember reacting about it.
Do you even know what the principle of the Dunning-Kruger effect is?
Just fucking tell us, bro. It's just a Google. But it's just 2 sentences tops.
You're a prophet. All you have to do is ask your God.
Refresh my memory. No, that's not how it works, bro.
Do you know or do you know or not?
I don't remember. How about that?
So then you don't know. You should have said you don't know.
That wouldn't be true. That would be a lie.
It would be a lie. You came up here lying. You said you knew what it was, but you can't tell me what it was.
No, I know what it is. I forgot. I probably forgot more shit than you fucking know in your life, bro.
I'm sure that you haven't demonstrated that so far, though. What you've demonstrated is that you're a liar.
Because you haven't moved the conversation on.
So the Dunning-Kruger effect.
I think people can tell who the dumbass is and who isn't.
Yeah, you got that right. The people can certainly tell.
Because I'm pissed off and I'm still dominating.
I know, you're so pissed right now. So the Dunning-Kruger effect.
I'm pissed and I'm still dominating.
Not even close. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is something that we find in psychology, where people that are the least equipped and the least educated and the least knowledgeable in particular subjects actually believe that they're more knowledgeable, more capable, when it's actually not true. Because as it turns out, the people who know the least are more likely to believe that they know more than they actually know, because they're not actually aware of the things that they don't know. They're so delightfully unaware of what they don't know that they think because they've learned a couple things that they actually know a lot. When in reality, the people who do get PhDs, the people who do learn a lot, the people that do excel greatly actually start to underestimate how much they know. It's a really fun thing that happens in psychology. So when people come up here and they claim to know a whole lot, and I sense that maybe they don't, I just ask them simple questions to find out if they know as much as they claim, which is why I'm asking you questions. I want to test you. You're claiming that you're really smart. I just want to know if you are.
Okay, well, you could have just asked me what my credentials are.
Sure, what are your credentials?
I have a master's degree in English. And what are you laughing about?
You got a master's degree in English? You might as well done underwater basket weaving.
No, we're talking, this was 20 years ago. This was when degrees were actually very good still. This was while the internet was being born at the same time.
Oh boy. And what do you do with your master's degree in English?
I'm a writer.
That makes a lot of sense.
Among other things.
Sure. Does your master's degree in English equip you to be an expert in things that are not English?
Absolutely it does.
Like what?
Let me tell you how.
I'm asking what?
Okay, that's because that's what you think that's going to answer your question or something.
Hadassah, I know how learning works.
Excuse me.
Hadassah, I know how learning works.
Okay, really? Okay, well,
I'm just asking.
Let me tell you how.
What other fields?
When you're in the humanities,
I
tell you when you get a degree in the humanities.
So just cool your memories for a minute. I'm just asking you, what other fields of study does getting a master's in English prepare you for?
It prepares you for quite a bit because you learn how to express your ideas and have a conversation like we're doing now.
I don't think we're having a conversation.
Still for many decades. Oh, I know you don't, because I am dominating you with my pinky and it's uncomfortable for you.
Again, you're just demonstrating that you're falling into the dunning-kruger effect. This is not.
No, you're falling. Excuse me. Did you know that I had a master?
Hadassah, just remember that as a Christian, you're supposed to be humble. And you're not being humble right now. I'm waiting for the humility because you're proving your claims to be false. Imagine being a prophet of God.
Does it look like that whip works on me, my dude?
It does. Hadassah,
you can put that whip away.
Hadassah,
put your whip away.
You know,
it doesn't work on me.
Did you know that
it doesn't work on me?
I have a master's degree too.
I don't care. You're the one being an asshole.
Do you think that
you're the one disrespecting believers?
By having an opinion?
When we having an opinion,
Hadassah,
you're using this platform to roast our.
Hadassah, did I go to your house or did you come to my house? Where are we right now?
I came to your house.
Oh, okay. So I'm in my house.
Okay, what?
So I'm in my house saying things in my own house. Did I force you to be here?
This is a public platform, and you know it.
But this is my stage, right?
You're trying to draw audiences.
But this is a space
that drew me. You drew me.
I worked in it. Yeah, okay, so this is a space that I made to say things that I believe and have dialogue about things that I believe. Do you think that I should be entitled to say things that I believe in a space that I create for myself?
Sure.
Okay.
What does that have to do with me having the tone that I have?
Because you're coming in here and you're upset that I have an opinion about things, and I'm saying it in my
because there's consequence.
And I'm saying it in my space, a space that I created so I could say these things. I didn't come to you. I didn't knock on your door. I didn't come to your live stream. You came to me. So you can't come and complain.
Your God is
You can't come and complain that I'm saying things.
Prove me wrong.
That I'm saying things in a space that I created for me.
He can't stop her from unmuting herself.
So your God is imaginary. Prove me wrong is what your room says.
Yeah, can you do
it? Probably not.
Oh shit! Sounds like you're in the wrong place then.
It doesn't. It'll never happen. That's why this room works for you. That's why this room will never go.
I expect the prophet of God to be able to prove you wrong.
Ever coming to a.
What can God do?
It doesn't work that way.
What can God do?
It does not work that way.
What can God do?
What can God do?
Yeah.
Anything.
Like what?
Anything.
Say one thing He can do.
It would take too long. It's called anything.
Just say one thing.
Anything. What do you not conceive about that?
Name one of the things that is in anything.
What do you not conceive? That is stupid.
I can do it. I can say, listen, I can say, Doug can do anything, but he can also wiggle his eyes. See, the wiggling of the eyes is a subset of anything. I'm looking for something that is a subset of anything. And it didn't take a long time. What's one of the anything that God can do?
What in the magician's trick shit is that? What conversation are we having?
Asking you, what can God do?
Pick. I'll let you pick. Pick your optimum. Optimum what?
I don't believe in your God.
What would you dream for me to say?
I don't believe in your God. I'm asking you.
No, tell me your dream response that you think of in your head.
I'm asking you, do you believe that your God is capable of doing things?
He's capable of doing anything.
Can you name even one of those things?
He can create the world.
Cool. What's the evidence of that?
That the world is created.
No, that's not evidence that he created it.
Yes, it fucking is.
No, it didn't. Doug created it.
Yeah, it is.
No.
What created it? I just told you.
No, Doug did.
Who is Doug?
You already saw him. Doug and his consort Sharon Stone. They're the rock of ages, the firm foundation that you put your feet on. They instantiate all possibilities and hold the grounding of all logic. They created everything.
Okay.
Not your God. Your God's fake.
Okay.
So the evidence...
Well, aren't we free to believe anything? So what the hell are we doing?
The evidence that Doug is God is the fact that you exist, Hadassah. Doug's merciful enough to allow you to blaspheme him.
Doug's merciful enough to allow you to blaspheme. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a prophet of Doug, by the way. I'm a prophet of Doug.
Doug sounds just like my guy. I think we're talking about the same guy.
We're not. So I think
we are.
We're gonna do a God competition. I'm gonna pray to Doug, and you're gonna pray to your God. We're gonna see who wins. So I'm gonna hold something. I'm gonna hold up. So I'm gonna hold up this pen, and I'm gonna pray to Doug that the pen cap stays on. You have to pray to your God that the pen cap comes off, and we'll see who wins.
I have
Ready?
to?
Well, yeah, we're gonna see.
I have to?
We're gonna see which God is more powerful.
Okay, but what if I don't want to do that?
Well, you're just admitting that your God has no powers.
No, I'm not admitting to that. I don't want to subject him to that. I think it's stupid.
But can your God?
I think you're an asshole. I don't want you to do it.
Again,
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
It would convert everybody here.
You don't understand.
It would convert everybody here.
Well,
do you want to convert?
You don't talk to enough Christians. You don't talk.
Do you want to convert everybody here to Christianity? Do you?
No, I do not, and neither does God.
Oh, so what do you want?
I want the gospel, the actual truth of the word to be preached so that people can know what they're turning down.
Is the Bible true?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. So in the Bible, when it says, have nothing to do with stupid and senseless controversies, you know that they breed quarrels. But it sounds like you're doing the opposite of that.
That doesn't make it not true. What else dumb shit you got to say?
So you're literally doing it right now. You're engaging.
It doesn't make it not
stupid
true.
And senseless controversies.
It's proving that it's correct.
Oh, you haven't proven anything correct. And
what the fuck?
It says the Lord's servants must not be quarrelsome, but kindly to everybody, an apt teacher, patient, correcting opponents with gentleness. Are you correcting people with gentleness right now?
No.
Oh, so you don't believe in the word of God?
I am not doing that very well right now.
But it says you're supposed to. It says the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kindly to everybody. But aren't you a prophet?
It does say you're supposed to. Yes, I am.
Didn't you know this verse existed?
I do know that verse exists.
But you're not being very humble.
Is that, do you not know how to just, it's like a family. It's not this thing you conform to. It's a guidebook, okay?
The family?
So,
what are you talking about? The family is a
I'm trying to explain. Have you ever been a Christian?
She been mad the entire 20 minutes.
20 years. That's why I know that Jesus isn't real.
Oh, okay. So you're disgruntled. That's what it is.
No, I'm not disgruntled.
Listen.
And she's a prophet. She got a YouTube channel. Don't nobody watch, but she got a channel.
You are.
No, not.
You are. You're disgruntled. Yeah, you are. I think
not.
you're the problem. I think you are. Because everything was fine. And now y'all.
It's like she thinks that calling me a liar is a valid argument. Listen, I had a delightful time in Christianity. I know that it's not true because I studied the Bible professionally. I went to Bible college and seminary. And I know that Jesus didn't fulfill a single prophecy. The Bible is full of contradictions. It's full of scientific inaccuracies. And it's 100% true. Everything I said is true. You want me to prove it for you?
I believe that you went to seminary. It's a very common problem. It happens to a lot of people.
Do you want me to prove my claims?
Prove your claim. No, because I know what you're going to say.
I can prove it.
And furthermore,
I can actually prove it. You want me to prove it?
People like people like you.
Okay, so you're saying I'm wrong, but you don't actually want me to prove my claims. I don't think you actually know how debates work. The way that debates work is typically like one person makes a claim, another person might make a counterclaim, and then
he can't keep her muted.
Need to actually provide like logic, reason, evidence for their claims. Now, as it turns out, my claims I can back up. Like I can go to the Bible, I can show you where it contradicts itself. I can go to the Bible, I can show you where it says Jesus fulfilled prophecies that he never actually fulfilled. I can back up my claims. All I'm asking you is, would you like me to back up my claims, or are you afraid of me actually doing that and proving you wrong?
If I surprisingly crumble.
I ain't talking about nothing. I'm listening to a prophet of God have a conversation with an atheist, and she's doing really, really bad representing God. And these the type of conversations and questions that I had back in the day about 12 years ago that made me be like, fuck this shit. I'm out.
It's one of your claims to Dutch. What are you going to do then? Are you just going to mute me and cut me off?
Not even close to worried about it.
You're not worried about, I asked you what you're going to do because these people need to know, because then you're going to gaslight them and say that some shit is going on that isn't going on. You're not going to panic and mute me?
No.
All right, go through your dumbass shit.
Only if you continue.
Let's go.
Only if you continue to be rude and interrupt like you have been. That's the only reason why you're getting muted.
Yeah,
you know
right.
That, right?
Oh, okay.
Like,
you see what he's going to use? You see what he's going to use?
So just so you're aware, you're the reason you keep getting muted, not me. You're getting muted because you're the one being rude. You're the one over talking everybody. You're the one that can't hold an adult conversation. All you actually have to do is behave like an adult, and I wouldn't mute you. In fact, I don't want to mute you. I would prefer to not mute you, but I can't do that because every time I talk, you talk, which is why you keep getting muted, and you're doing it right now. You're still doing it.
You can see everyone
as I'm
she
explaining
keeps
to you
unmuting
why
herself.
muted, you're doing the thing that I said is going to get you muted.
Okay.
Okay. So now I would love to take turns. I have no problem taking turns. The problem is I sense that you don't want to take turns talking.
Bro, I'm on the spectrum and you're taking so much fucking time, bro. Just
well, first of all,
hear these claims that are so wonderful.
Being on the spectrum doesn't have anything to do with your bad behavior. My son is heavily...
Are you on the spectrum?
My son is on the spectrum and he doesn't behave like you. And my son is a level 3 on the spectrum, which is as high as it goes.
Okay, well, I was born in 80.
The problem isn't that you're on the spectrum. The problem is that you're full of yourself and you can't actually behave like an adult. That's why you're behaving the way that you behave. I work with quite a few people that are on the spectrum because I'm an electrical engineer and I work with a bunch of engineers. And as it turns out, people in engineering are quite often on the spectrum. So being on the spectrum doesn't mean that you have to be a piece of shit, because the people that I work with are delightful. And I know for a fact that a couple of them are on the spectrum. So
she said, I'm on the spectrum, bro.
Contains contradictions. Is that an easy place to start?
Sure.
Okay. Is it your belief that the Bible contains contradictions? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Does the Bible even contain one contradiction?
No.
Okay. Now, if I did show you a contradiction, this is a hypothetical. If I did show you a contradiction, what would it mean?
I would probably be able to tell you how that's not a contradiction, and then you would say some bullshit about how I'm wrong about that.
That wasn't my analogy. My analogy said, if I did show you a true contradiction, what would it mean?
Okay, clearly, I'm going to have to break out of your analogy if I'm going to show you something you've never seen.
Nope, wrong again.
Okay, well, then I guess you're not allowed to end your stream forever, I guess.
So my analogy
that makes sense.
My analogy includes the fact that I showed you a bona fide contradiction. I'm saying, if I did indeed show you a true contradiction, what would it mean about the Bible?
First of all, you got to look at every translation, because translations are tricky.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you know Greek and Hebrew?
I know my way around a translation.
Oh,
that's another thing you learn with a master's in English. You know research pretty good. You're doing a lot of writing, a lot of papers.
Yeah. Did you learn the original languages?
I learned many languages. I understand how languages work.
Did you learn how to read Greek and Hebrew?
Do you know why they tell you to do that?
It's crazy that you can't actually say yes or no. Answer the question. Do you know Greek and Hebrew?
You know why I can't? You know why I can't? Because you have already established
that's all I want to know.
That is the height.
All I want to know is if you can read the original languages that the Bible was written in, because that seems to be the most important thing. If you think something's mistranslated, what we should be doing is going back and seeing what was in the original language. So I'm asking you, do you know the original languages?
Everything I don't know can be found.
All I asked you was whether
Bible apps.
I don't know why she can't answer a question. All I asked was whether or not you know the original languages. All you have to say is either yes or no.
I'll answer your question when you answer me if you're capable of free.
Wrong again. I asked you a question already. I'm not going to let you run from it. It's an easy question. The question is, do you actually know Greek and Hebrew? Is this yes or no?
You're not going to let me run from it?
It's yes or no.
It's an irrelevant question.
It's yes or no.
It's irrelevant.
It's yes or no.
No, it's not irrelevant.
Okay, what do I know the Greek or Hebrew? I know enough. I study it quite a bit. I know some words, actually.
Okay, so you know a couple words.
I can't have a whole conversation, no. But I have studied the Greek and the Hebrew, and it's look-upable. Do you know what sake?
Do you know
the same thing as a concordance?
Do you know what the aorist conjugation is in Greek?
The what?
The aorist conjugation.
The aorist?
Yeah.
Is that the verb to be?
No.
What is it?
It's a form of conjugation in Greek. So you don't know Greek. Cool. All right.
An aorist conjugation. No. Excuse me. All conjugations are the same.
No, they're not.
All conjugations. Yes, they are. Nah. You got a first person, second person, third person.
Wrong.
Yes, they are, bro.
Wrong
yes,
thing.
They are.
You're wrong.
You can
You're wrong.
And you can look it up.
You're wrong.
You can look up. No, I'm not wrong. I have a degree. I've studied the.
You don't have a degree in Greek. If you did, you would know that the aorist conjugation is a way of conjugating verbs where the action of the verb happened in the past, but is actually ongoing. So it's a past tense verb that is still continuing, right? That's an aorist verb in the Greek. I asked you that because it's a very common way of forming verbs in Greek. And I'm just curious if you actually know any Greek, or if you just learned a word once and now you think you know Greek.
Learned a word once? I just told you I have a degree in English. Right, all you're doing is describing.
But not in Greek, okay. And you don't know any Hebrew either. I'm not even going to ask you about Hebrew verbal stems. That'd be a complete waste. Okay, so now let's talk about the So let's talk about the actual contradiction.
Tell you anything.
So what I'm going to do is open the Bible and go to 1 Chronicles 21. Can you do that?
He doing some illusionist bullshit on y'all. What? Where is it at?
They're watching you crash out right now. It's 1 Chronicles 21.
Yeah, because you're a liar.
Just go ahead and turn to 1 Chronicles 21.
And the only people that know are you and me.
No, you don't know anything. You're the Dunning-Kruger effect, remember? Just turn to 1 Chronicles 21. We'll actually get to the point.
1 Chronicles 21. Oh, yeah, like you understand anything about the Old Testament. We'll be here for a while, I'm sure.
I literally have 2 degrees in biblical studies, both of them focusing in the Hebrew scriptures. So between the two of us, I would say one of us is actually prepared to read the Old Testament.
Between the 2 of us.
So 1 Chronicles 21. Are you there yet? Let me know.
She's a prophet.
Yeah, you're right, Mason. She's new here. She don't know. She's gonna find out today.
Anybody can just say any damn thing.
About verse 11 in 1 Chronicles 21. It's gonna be a wild night. I was gonna go to bed at midnight, but I'm having so much fun. I might stay on all night with Hadassah. Hadassah, did you find the verse yet? Do you know where Chronicles is? Or do you have to look at like the reference guide at the beginning of the Bible? Maybe God will give you a prophecy about how to find it. She's probably still yelling. She don't even know she muted right now.
He is a dick though, but she deserved it.
You never did tell me for where in 1 Chronicles.
I did. 21.
1 Chronicles what?
21:11.
1 Chronicles 21:11.
Never told me why she laughed. Everybody said that shit 13 times.
All right, who's reading it? Am I reading what?
I'll read it for you. In fact, I'll put it on the screen.
Okay.
It says Gad, that's the prophet. It doesn't say God. It says Gad came to David and said to him, "Thus saith the Lord, take your choice. 3 years of famine, or 3 months of devastation by your foes, while the sword of your enemies overtakes you, or 3 days of the sword of the Lord, pestilence on the land." So Gad is giving 3 options to David for a punishment. And the first option is 3 years of famine.
She's still
The
trying
second
to
option
find
is
it.
3 months of devastation. And the third option is 3 days of
She's
pestilence.
flipping through her Bible.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the parallel story, because this story is told twice, is going to be in the book of Samuel. If you go to 2 Samuel 24, we get the identical same story, except something is different. Let me see if you can find it. In verse 12, he says, "Go and say to David, thus saith the Lord, 3 things I offer you, choose one of them and I will do it to you." So Gad came to David and told him, and he asked him, "Shall 7 years of famine come to you on your land, or will you flee 3 months before your foes while they pursue you, or shall there be 3 days pestilence in your land?" Did you spot the difference?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Where's the difference?
The one says 3 and one says 7.
Yeah. Are those the same numbers?
No.
So then was it 3 or 7?
Candy, my internet was out for 2 damn days. It went down at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and it came on at like 10 o'clock this morning. Apparently, AT&T don't work on Sundays.
I don't know. I have to do some further research on it.
Sounds to me like it's just a
It might
contradiction.
be. It's a big ass book, and all of it intersects.
I know. That's why I know it's a contradiction.
No, you don't know that it's a contradiction.
I do.
No, you don't.
I do, because 3 and 7 are different numbers.
Oh my God, let's throw the whole fucking book out.
Oh, this is
That's really responsible.
This is literally just a tip of the iceberg. You want to keep going?
Sure.
Well, today you're going to learn. Mark chapter 2. I assume you know where Mark is.
No. Actually, yeah, you're right. I am. Because when I come back and look at every last one of these and in your fucking channel, I'm going to fucking spit on your grave.
Can't wait. I literally cannot wait for you to come back.
I know that you can't wait. I know that you can't wait.
No, this ain't the AI argument.
All the apologetical
My
answers
bad
for this.
apologetics, bro.
And
I said I'm a prophet.
And they don't work here. So
I said I'm a prophet.
Mark chapter 2, verse 26.
First one was First Chronicles.
I have heard a good AI debate, though.
The other one was in 2 Samuel. And
2 Samuel.
Let's see, what chapter were we in 2 Samuel? It was going to be chapter 24. Maybe you can ask God for guidance.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
It's interesting that I bet your research is going to be looking stuff up on the internet and not getting revelation from God. I'm willing to bet that. But anyways, let's go to Mark chapter 2.
And if I find some shit, then what happens?
Nothing's going to happen. I already know what shit you're going to find. I already read it.
What do you mean? What? Okay. Fine, keep going.
Listen, you go to Apologetics Press or gotquestions.org, come back with the bad answer, and I'll cook you on your bad answer just like I'm cooking you now. So Mark chapter 2.
You're not going to cook me on shit.
Yeah, I will.
You're going to get cooked.
In your dreams. Go to Mark chapter 2 for me.
In your dreams. What?
Go to Mark chapter 2.
No, you said 2 Samuel 24.
We're already done.
And then you didn't say anything else?
Now, both of these people got channels. Hold on. This guy is DZ Debates, and this chick is Hadessa 316. And she goes live often. So does he.
No.
What did we say?
It's already done. 3 and 7 are different.
No, that was 1 Chronicles 21:11.
Which is a contradiction of 1 Samuel 24. Or 2 Samuel 24.
Oh, those are addressing the same thing.
It's the same story. Two different authors,
Hold up,
different
2
details.
Samuel 24. 2 Samuel 24. He wasn't king in 2 Samuel.
Yeah, it was.
Hold up.
Sure was.
2 Samuel 24.
Literally the same
Let me
chapter.
just double check. Because you just said it.
Literally the same story. You
Okay.
could put those
It
two
says,
chapters.
David enrolls the fighting men. Hold up.
Put the two chapters side by side. They're the same story.
David enrolls the fighting men.
You're right.
Okay.
Freed. She was supposed to be smarter, right? I expected better from a Christian being that they're supposed to be smarter than us atheists.
This does not indicate smartness. You're not getting me on that showy bullshit.
It seems to me like you're not very smart if you don't know that these are the same chapters.
You're not getting smart. This ginormous book, 3 and 7 is all you got.
I got a lot.
Numbers.
I got a lot more than that. I got so much.
Oh, you got 7 typos where it said comb instead of brush.
Nope, not
Jeez Louise.
Not even close. I've got so much more. If you can actually get the mental,
the second one is just a shadow of the first one.
if you can actually muster the mental fortitude to keep forging on, you can see some more.
Keep going.
Okay, did you find Mark chapter 2 yet?
No, what is it?
Go ahead and turn to Mark
Is
chapter
Mark
2.
chapter 2 the whole chapter? What the fuck?
Verse 26.
What's the verse?
Verse 26.
2:26. Okay.
Okay.
Mark 2:26.
Now Jesus is speaking.
Y'all
here.
love to say this shouldn't be, none of these should even count. These are eyewitness accounts. This is so freaking stupid.
Mark wasn't
Keep
an
going.
eyewitness. Mark was the cousin of Barnabas. Do you think Mark was a disciple?
Mark wrote it. No, Mark wrote it on behalf of Peter.
Oh, where's that in the Bible?
It's Peter's. That's known, just like you pulled out that Barnabas shit. That's not in the Bible.
Yeah, Colossians chapter 4. Are we reading for you?
Colossians chapter 4. What about it?
Says that John Mark is a cousin of Barnabas. You haven't read this book,
What
have
does
you?
that have to do with it?
You have no idea what's in this
No,
book.
but listen, you don't have to perform for everybody.
It's crazy to me.
You don't have to perform everybody.
All right,
Mark was writing on behalf of Peter. Everybody knows that.
No, they don't.
That's Peter's.
I disagree.
That's Peter's point. Of course,
Yeah.
everybody knows that.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
I disagree.
Yes, they do.
I disagree.
Okay, well, they should because it's old news.
It's not old news. It's
They only started changing that.
It's
They started changing
mythology.
that shit since the internet.
nah, it's just mythology. So in Mark
No, it's
chapter
not
2,
fucking mythology. How old are you?
it's mythology. Mark chapter 2.
How old are you?
I mean, if you want to read the book, we could read the book. It sounds like you're afraid to read the book.
It's not. You know why it's mythology? Because it's true, bro.
It sounds to be that you're
Why
afraid
would
to
they lie about
it sounds
it?
like you're afraid to read the book. You want to read it?
I'm not afraid to read the book.
It's on the-
I'm saying that
it's on the screen right
I
now.
know about what Mark is.
You don't. Hadassah, read what's on the
Yes,
screen.
I do.
Read what's on the screen.
How he entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat. He gave some to his companions.
Right. And who's this about? Do you know what's happening in Mark chapter 2?
David.
Okay, right. Now, do you believe that when David went into the temple or the shrine at Nob and ate the showbread, that Abiathar was the high priest?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you know where that story comes from?
Somewhere in Samuel.
Yeah, because I'm typing it on the screen. 1 Samuel 21. All right, so now.
No, I know where.
First
I
Samuel-
read my Bible.
Well, I'm sure you've
You
demonstrated.
pompous ass.
You've demonstrated that so well to us.
I read it for
Says,
funsies.
David came to Nob to the priest Ahimelech, and Ahimelech came trembling to meet David and said to him, why are you alone and no one with you? And then what happens? He has a whole conversation with Ahimelech, and Ahimelech gives him the showbread. He says, give me 5 loaves of bread and whatever is here. The priest answered David, I have no ordinary bread at hand, only the holy bread. So, like, who's the high priest here?
It says Ahimelech.
Oh, shit. Is Ahimelech Abiathar?
I don't know.
No, they're not. They're different people.
Okay.
Which means
That doesn't change
Yep.
the point.
She reads
that
the
means
Bible
Mark chapter
for
2, verse 26 is
funsies.
wrong. They quoted the Old Testament wrong. That's another contradiction. Want to see more?
Okay, but Jesus himself quoted the Old Testament wrong. How about that then?
I love it. Matthew 22. We'll do it right now. We'll do Luke 4 and Matthew 22. And shit, well, there's even a passage in Matthew where he misquotes Psalm 8. But my favorite is Matthew 22. If you go down to verse 41. It says, while the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them this question, what do you think of the Messiah? Whose son is he? They said to him, the son of David. And he said to them, how is it then that David by the Spirit calls him Lord, saying, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet? What is Jesus saying? Why is he quoting Psalm 110 here?
Because he's asking who the Lord is in the sentence.
Right, but what's he
And
saying?
how can it be his son?
What is he suggesting about the Messiah?
He's suggesting that the label is not correct.
He's suggesting that the Messiah is not just the son of David. The Messiah is also on par with God. Right.
No, I don't think that's what that means. I think that means that he is questioning the Son of David moniker. He's saying, why are we saying this? And the scripture says this. So they were calling him Son of David.
So Jesus is making something very interesting here. He's just saying, if David calls him Lord, how can he be his son? He's just saying that the Messiah is going to be Lord, right?
Right.
Okay. So do you believe then that when Jesus is quoting this text, like I should go back to Psalm 110 and I should see David saying, the Lord said to my Lord, right?
Sure.
Have you read Psalm 110?
A couple of times, probably, yeah.
For funsies.
It's a big book. I read it. It's part of my life. So I'm not, I don't have a stick up my ass. I don't get to have a medal for how many hours I spent reading the Bible, like some people.
She reads it, but she can't remember shit in it, motherfucker.
So Psalm 110 starts out with Na'um Yahweh, which means an oracle of Yahweh. It doesn't actually.
Oh, slam dunk. They're idiots.
I don't think you actually know what I just said. So it doesn't start out saying that the Lord said to my Lord. It says Na'um Yahweh la'adini, which means an oracle of Yahweh to my master. That's what that means. This is clearly an oracle from somebody in King David's court about King David, which is why he literally says, sit at my right hand until I make thy enemies my footstool, the exact promise made to David that came true in 1 Kings chapter 5. So this is not David even
That
speaking.
is somebody's interpretation.
No, it's not.
That's someone's interpretation.
No.
If Jesus is using that,
You're wrong.
Jesus himself is using that as reference
And
to
he's
himself.
wrong. Do you know why he's wrong?
Oh, Jesus is wrong.
Do you want-
oh shit.
do you-
Okay,
do
you're
you-
that deluded.
Do you
You're
want
deluded.
to know why he's wrong?
Why is he wrong?
Because he doesn't know how to read Hebrew, or whoever wrote the Gospel of Matthew didn't know how to read Hebrew. They're quoting it from the Greek. Do you know what the Greek text says?
What does it say?
It says, the Lord said to my Lord. Do you want to know why it says that?
Why does it say that?
Because just like our English Bibles, rather than saying the name of Yahweh, quite often they would say the Lord instead of Yahweh to protect the divine name. So in the Greek text, it literally says Hakyrios, the Lord said to my Lord. And it sounds, if you're reading that, it sounds like it's talking about two different lords. But when you read it in the original Hebrew, it's clear that there are not two lords. There is an oracle of Yahweh to a lord, to the master. Adonai just means my master. It's what they called the king.
That Adonai is the name of God. It's plural.
It doesn't say.
What are you talking about?
It doesn't say Adonai, and Adonai is not plural.
Well, what does it say then?
It says Adonai. Adonai is a different vowel pointing.
Okay, so I don't agree with your interpretation. That's just an interpretation.
Well, then,
first of all,
show me where it's wrong.
First of all,
show me where it's wrong.
Listen.
So,
like I said,
did you know
like
that?
I said,
Did you know that?
Are we going to have an actual conversation?
Not if you keep
Because I
talking.
don't think you're capable of that.
So-
I don't think you're capable of that.
Does the word
You got me
Na'um?
going down your funnel. You got me going down your weird ass funnel, thinking this
What-
is important.
what does-
None of this change.
Let's try this again. Does the word Na'um, is that a verb or a noun? Do you know?
What is what?
Is it a verb or a noun?
Is what a verb or a noun?
The word I have highlighted, Na'um, is that a verb or a noun?
What does it mean?
I'm asking you, is it a verb or a noun?
I don't know what the translation of the word is, so I wouldn't know.
Okay, it's a noun. It's not actually a verb. It doesn't say that Yahweh said anything. It just says an oracle of Yahweh. Na'um Yahweh.
You do know that
is
Bible apps have Hebrew on them.
I know,
I would
which
click
is
on it right.
which is why I went to school to learn Hebrew, so I wouldn't have to do dumb things like use websites. So
You went to school to learn something that
so-
you can just look up on an app.
I know, yeah.
Congrats, bro.
I know you went to learn English. You went to learn something that I learned as a 5th grader. That's what you did. I went to school and I actually
It's
learned
because
the original languages
arrogant.
and history of the Bible.
Arrogant. Okay.
I'm not arrogant. I'm just right.
I
So
learned
the fact of the matter is,
well, for
Na'um is a
my electives too.
Na'um wasn't a verb. It's actually a noun, right?
Nothing. All you're saying is gobbledygook, bro.
So
and I know it.
It's not gobbledygook. Na'um,
Yes, it is.
Do you think-
It doesn't prove.
Do you think that verbs and nouns are the same?
Are you an asshole and a cocksucker?
It sounds to me like you're incapable of answering the question. Do you think that verbs and nouns are the same?
Do you think that your arrogant act is fooling any fucking body?
It sounds to me like you're feeling a little hot under the collar and you're incapable of engaging with the dialogue, which is why you're crashing out like a
Because
toddler.
it's free.
So the question was, do you think that verbs and nouns mean the same thing? Because if in fact this is a noun,
This time's coming.
if in fact this is a noun, it doesn't say that God spoke. It doesn't say that Yahweh spoke. It actually is announcing.
This over with.
It's actually
Real
announcing.
Christians
It's actually announcing something. So the question is, what is it?
Christians.
The question is, what is it?
Real power.
What is it announcing?
Don't need these stupid ass arguments.
You've got
Stupid.
You've got real power. Oh shit!
Yes,
What power do
real
you have?
experience.
Show me your power.
You're an asshole.
Show me your power.
I got the power to not just to see through your bullshit and know that it has nothing to do with the truth. The people are thirsty for someone who's going to give them something real. And you
sounds like you're incapable of doing that.
All you did was copy the Pharisaical Christian model, make it secular. I'm not impressed. It's retarded, and the Lord's coming for it. The prophet Hadassah is debuting today because it's Easter, Passover, and 420. What's good? If you hearing my voice and it's 420, smoke your shit. Find the Lord, because He's out there.
Wait, smoke your shit. Find the Lord.
About Jesus.
Sounds to me like you're out there, and I don't know if you know how this platform works, but this platform is certainly not a place where you get to preach. So the question is whether or not you want to engage in some dialogue. I'm more than happy to engage in some dialogue.
You can't keep up muted.
Go find the Lord.
All right, I'm done with that one. That one's done.
Home state call. We've got, is it Jerikia in Killeen, Texas?
It's Jerichiah.
Jerichiah. I'm sorry. I don't even know if they spelled that right. Does it have a K or a CH? Forget it. It doesn't matter. Hi, Jerichiah.
How are you? How are y'all doing? Pretty good. Thank you.
Good. Thanks. What's up?
Hey.
Christopher, having conversations with men aren't much different on this topic. It's not much different.
I had a question about your worldview. I was just curious, from a theistic perspective, being a non-denominational Christian, I'm just curious, how come atheists don't actually practice or live out their worldview?
I do not know what you mean. You're going to have to get more specific.
Atheists per se don't have a worldview. Each person does, but there's not one atheist worldview that 100 million atheists share.
Right. Atheism is one perspective on one topic that maybe informs the rest of our thinking, but does not determine everything else that we think.
Was there a specific thing?
Phil and I are really geeky about math, and a lot of atheists are not.
Is there a specific?
I mean, but atheists can't answer the four most important questions about life philosophically.
Important is subjective.
And even if they can't, doesn't mean we're wrong.
What are the four most important questions about life? I'm biting.
It would be origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. And I even beg to differ. Atheists.
Those aren't questions.
Humanity knows.
Yeah, I didn't hear a question mark.
Yeah.
Can you give us one question to start with?
So from a philosophical perspective, can you prove to me the origin and the historical evidence of why somebody would be an atheist when they contradict their own worldview within the frame they live?
Okay, you're back to the first question that I didn't understand.
I think so. Was that a question? I think it was.
Well,
it was a bad question.
The question was, can you? And so
I think it's a loaded question.
Since I didn't quite understand the question, I'm just going to say no. Next. Can you dumb things down for us a little? Because we're just simple-minded atheists.
I apologize because I thought Christians couldn't be logical like atheists.
Well,
that's what you think.
Guess.
Because the origin of life. I mean, how do you even explain the Big Bang theory? Well, what I find hysterically funny is how atheists reject the evidence we have of Scripture, and the manuscripts are passed down from generations. And yet they deny the God of the Bible, but yet they can't even prove millions of years ago what happened.
Okay. Do you know why? Okay. Do you know why scientists, and I'm not talking about atheists, but just cosmologists in general, have concluded that there was a Big Bang?
Yeah. In the beginning, God spoke.
No, that's not why cosmologists have concluded that. That's why you have. But the concept of a Big Bang wasn't around 100 years ago. So do you understand where people came to that conclusion in the first place?
Yeah, through science.
Okay. I like that. Can you be more specific, though? I mean, was it biology? There are a lot of topics that science covers. All right. So let me help you out a little bit. When you look at light, so you know how light can appear at different colors depending on the wavelength of light. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So If things that have longer wavelengths look red to us, and if they're even longer than that, then we can't see them because they're infrared and beyond. Things that have very short wavelengths look blue or purple to us, and if they're too short, then we can't see them either because our eyes don't work that way. But what scientists have observed is that when things are moving very quickly, like close to the speed of light, or maybe not all that close. By the way, my dad is a physicist, and he's sitting in the audience right now, and I feel his eyes on me. Sorry I didn't stick with the physics classes, Dad. I'm doing my best. When things are moving quickly, they experience a shift toward the red. Because they're moving away. Because even though the wavelength of the light doesn't change, their motion relative to you seems to be longer. What scientists observed was that if you look out at any point in space, everything is a little bit more redshifted than you would expect it to be based on what we know about the composition of stars. And from this, they concluded that everything in the universe is moving away from us very rapidly.
And the farther away, the more rapid.
Yes, the farther away things get, the more rapid they are. And that is consistent with going back into the past and finding that at one point, everything was locally existing within the same small area, and things were expanding from there. Now, does the Big Bang say what happened at the start of that? No. Do we know what that is? We have some. Okay, how do you know that?
Where in the Bible does it say Big Bang?
Yeah, the Bible does not say Big Bang. This is something that Christians have just latched onto since it was discovered by other people.
Because more than 100 years ago, Christians argued that the fact that the universe was finite was supported in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yes, they did. Okay, and you may think that they were mistaken and they were misreading the Bible, but they did argue that a long time ago.
No, I believe you. I'm not saying they didn't argue.
You said no.
You said no.
But did that explanation make sense to you? Because you're asking, why do atheists believe in the Big Bang? And I gave you the answer. Is that a sensible conclusion?
Well, what caused the Big Bang?
We don't know.
Don't know.
And sometimes I don't know is the right answer.
No, God is the answer.
How do you know?
I don't need to know.
Well, there you go. Why are you asking how I know something if you have no idea what you're talking about?
And we actually want it to be true, not just because you believe it. Can you support what you believe?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Let's try that for a change.
Sure.
You don't need to know.
Okay. I mean, everything you said is scientifically, science. What does science mean? Just means knowledge. Epistemology.
Is this part of your evidence, or are you dodging the question?
No, I'm not dodging the question. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and God said, "Let there be light."
How do you know that?
I don't need to know that. How do you know that?
Okay. Why are we talking then? If you don't feel like there's anything that you have to tell us that's useful information because you don't know it or need to, then why did you call?
You said you have evidence and then you don't provide any. Why is that?
Well, the evidence is in the Bible itself.
Yeah, but we don't believe the Bible.
That's fine. I don't believe in atheism.
Okay. Well, and good chat. Next.
So do you have evidence or not?
Yeah, prophecy alone proves the divinity of God.
Oh, so you do think that's evidence?
Oh, yeah, it's sufficient.
Okay. Hit me with your favorite prophecy. Make it a good one.
Isaiah 53.
Uh-huh.
The book of Isaiah was written 700 years before the Messiah.
Just give us the prophecy.
Yeah. Can you tell us what it says and what happened?
If you read Isaiah, the book of Isaiah was written 700 years before Christ even came. Jesus came 81. The prophet Isaiah prophesied of the suffering servant, which even Orthodox Jews understand this passage to be a messianic prophecy. And if you read the entire chapter, no other person in history has fulfilled this but Jesus Christ.
There have been no other suffering servants in history?
No, people have suffered, but they do not fulfill every single book.
And Jesus wasn't a servant. He was a carpenter.
Like Jesus.
Like what?
I mean, if you read verse 3, he's despised and rejected of men.
Oh, okay. Good thing Jesus was the only despised and rejected person.
Yeah,
that is an amazing prophecy. And remember, I asked you to bring your favorite one, and that was the first one that you came up with.
Now, I have a question for you as far as the Bible. When people wrote the books of the New Testament, were they able to read the Old Testament?
Were they able to read the Old Testament? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So when someone wrote books or stories to put in what became the New Testament, they could read what was previously written.
Yes.
Change the story to fulfill what was written before.
No, not at all.
They couldn't?
Well, I think I could do that if I read an old Batman story. I can incorporate some of those themes into a new Batman story.
I guess I am a more creative author than those guys, because I could totally write you a Messiah story right now that fulfills the prophecies better.
No, what you don't understand is this was written 700 years before Christ even came.
That is a really long time to be able to come up with a story that fits it.
And no one else in history fulfills that prophecy.
No one else?
No one? So far you told us that there is a suffering servant, okay? I think most servants suffer. And what was the other one? He was despised. Maybe he was a douchebag.
No, maybe he's just fulfilling prophecy because you're actually rejecting him as well.
I reject the Easter Bunny.
Wow,
as well.
what? Okay, so if I accepted him, then the call would be over because you'd be like, well, yeah, you accept him, good job. If I don't accept him, then obviously it's true because not accepting him proves that he's fulfilling the prophecy. That's pretty weak.
That's pretty strong. I would
Okay, if you say so.
What do you say? Because there's prophecies in the Bible that are fulfilled, and only Christ can fulfill those prophecies.
All right, so he was a suffering servant and he was despised. What else?
If you keep going down to verses 5, it says, "But he was wounded for our transgressions, and he was bruised for our iniquities."
I don't accept that happened.
He was crucified. It's historically proven when he died.
For our transgressions? There are a million stories in movies and literature about people getting hurt for other people.
Yeah, but what you don't understand is that you're not even opening your mind to the possibility.
Well, no, you are assuming the validity of the story that you're trying to prove to us, and so you are
true.
How do you know it's true? If you would share this with us, then maybe it would be convincing. But all you're doing is pointing to aspects of the story that we're not finding convincing.
Well, I don't understand how you don't see how he fits the prophecy. If you read it and you know anything about Jesus, he's the only one in history that fulfilled this prophecy from Isaiah chapter 53, verse 1, all the way to verse 12.
I don't like to crib off other atheist experience hosts, but I do, on occasion, enjoy Matt's comment, which is, if I order a steak and the waiter brings it to me, did he fulfill my prophecy?
No, because that wasn't thousands of years ago.
Oh, but I ordered a steak last year and it comes to me this year.
Actually, I think ordering a steak and it coming immediately is a better fulfillment of the prophecy because, I mean, that guy was at least timely. If all you're doing is saying there's going to be an earthquake and then 1,000 years down the road there's an earthquake, that doesn't really count as me predicting that earthquake, right?
Well, I mean, that's fine. You have an opinion. You know, you have you're entitled to your own opinion.
Does it? What do you think about Nostradamus?
Nostradamus?
Yeah,
Any predictions?
Yeah, and a lot of people said he specifically predicted 9/11, for example. He didn't, but a lot of people said he did and retrofitted a lot of stuff in the actual story to match the things that they thought he was saying. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, but that is irrelevant to the scriptures.
No. Well, how about this for a different topic? The Bible promotes slavery. Are you pro-slavery?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, then you're not a very good Christian.
That's not true because if you read Exodus chapter 21, the Hebrew word for slavery is abed, actually. And if you go back 4,000 years ago, every single nation had slaves. And
so that makes it okay. That's nice.
No,
that's nice.
No, I didn't say that it was okay. That's not what I'm saying.
It is what you said.
God said it was okay.
I said it was okay because he doesn't know better.
Do you know better than God?
Do I know better than God? No, I would never.
Then why is slavery wrong?
Why is slavery wrong?
Why didn't God know slavery was wrong?
God could have mentioned it. I mean, you know, he had a lot of really, really detailed things about like not eating milk and meat or not bathing a calf in its mother's milk.
Thou shalt not roast a goat in its mother's milk.
That's the one. I think it was calf. But I mean, he had a whole lot of specific things to say that may have been unpopular at the time. Did he just forget to bring up slavery or what?
No, not at all. And, you know, I deal with this a lot, actually, with a lot of atheists. And I mean, it's understandable. I understand why you could propose that objection against the Bible. But regardless, there was slavery in that time. And God told Moses, this is how slavery is actually.
God was not one to buck social convention. Is that it? God was afraid he'd get too many thumbs down on Twitter or something. Or Twitter doesn't have thumbs down, but too many angry faces on Facebook. That's what I meant.
So as long as you beat your slave and they survive a day or two, you're okay with that?
That's actually you're quoting from Exodus 21. And actually, if you have to study it more, you can't just pick and choose that one verse because, I mean, what exactly you're referring to is in Exodus 21 talking about slavery, verses 1 through 2. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before thee by Hebrew servant. 6 years shall he serve and all that stuff. And it says, if a man smite thee, verse 26, if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his mate, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. So
the part about striking him so hard that I mean, as long as he lives a day or two, there's no punishment at all. That's fine. Because there's other stuff in the Bible that says other things.
No, not at all. Because if he did that, it would be done back to him.
No,
The whole Mosaic law.
not according to that part of the Bible.
Okay, I mean, but what I'm showing you is that, number one, you cannot compare slavery in the Bible to slavery that was in the world.
Oh, cool. Can I own slaves now then?
But you just said slavery was in every country. You compared it to the
Yeah,
world.
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
good.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we win.
they
All right.
had freedom and liberty on certain days to do whatever they did, and they served their time. They would go out for free.
Oh, good. Can I own slaves now?
No, because
Why?
of the old covenant, which is done away.
Well, Jesus said that he didn't come to change the old covenant. He came to fulfill it.
Not one jot or tittle of the law.
Exactly. He came to fulfill it. That means it's been inaugurated.
So,
You have to read Jeremiah 31, where the prophet said that he's going to make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah.
at
Not
what
according to the
point?
covenant.
At what point did Jesus say that it's not okay to own slaves anymore?
At the point that he never owned a slave and none of his disciples did.
Okay, well, I mean, Jesus never got married either. Is it no longer okay to get married?
The Bible says to be married to a man.
And the Bible says to own slaves.
Jesus didn't have
Yeah.
slaves, so based on your
Jesus
logic,
didn't comment on the slaves.
no man should ever marry a woman. That's your argument.
You see, no, it's not my argument. What I'm trying to say, if you give me time to say it, is that what you don't understand is covenant in the Bible.
Okay, I guess I don't.
Yes, if you read the prophet Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31, he says that the covenant that I'm making with the house of Israel and Judah, which Christ fulfills, is the fulfillment. Jesus is the fulfillment of the old covenant. That means we no longer live according to the old covenant. We live according to the new covenant. That's why you don't see slavery in the New Testament.
Why can't I keep owning slaves though? It didn't tell me not to.
Because it was fulfilled. Christ fulfilled the law.
So do the 10 Commandments still apply?
Yes, that's the moral law. That's
Because that was in the Old
But those were
Testament too.
fulfilled.
Yeah.
I guess I can dishonor my father and mother now because Jesus
No,
fulfilled the honoring of the father and mother, and so I get to do what I want.
No, please listen to me, okay? You're talking about two different laws. The law of Moses is not the law of God.
How do you know
We're
that
just
it's
trying to find the difference.
Is it written? Which
It's
book is?
based on stone tablets.
Okay, so Moses is a higher authority than God.
Is it the 42 rules or the 10 that only stuck?
It's just the
Wait a minute. Did he say the law of Moses ain't the law of God? When God had inscribed the stones himself, and then Moses had broke them, and he told him, nigga, you got to carve out some more. But he still told him what to write.
So the
moral law of God.
the first commandments that Moses got that he smashed, those don't count?
No, because they broke the commandments by worshiping a false golden calf.
Golden calf?
Oh,
I don't remember saying calf. I remember idol.
Golden calf, yeah.
The calf?
Sorry, that one is right.
So Moses had a whole bunch of rules and he smashed it, so those don't apply because he broke them.
The Mosaic covenant is of no longer effect, and that's
He said that no, because they sinned, but they didn't know what God had written yet. Moses was up there on the mountain for a long time. They didn't know it was a sin for them to worship the golden calf because it hadn't been written yet.
the slavery laws.
The Mosaic covenant being including the 10 commandments, I'm lost.
Yeah, it's so complicated.
Okay, see,
Yeah.
no,
Do you have any evidence outside of the storybook of the Bible?
there's historical evidence that Jesus exists.
Oh, okay.
Well, I suppose maybe Jesus did exist, so what? I exist. Are you listening to what I say?
The proof of God's existence.
What?
I mean, what did our Christians believe? They believe that Jesus is God. And when God came to the earth, what did man do? We killed him.
I didn't kill
I
him.
wasn't there. I had nothing to do with it.
Humanity. Neither did I. I wasn't there.
Okay.
Were you there?
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wait, Ken.
Ken Ham.
Sorry, I get my goofy apologists mixed up.
So we only have 12 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't think this is going to go anywhere more, but you are welcome, Jerichiah, to call back another week and
Thank you.
somebody
Thank you for
else.
calling.
Hey, and I want to say one thing before I go.
Go ahead.
Mind, please.
Yep.
I speak. I'm a Christian, non-denominational believer. I do want to apologize for every Christian who has called in the past and threatened you guys, because I don't believe in that stuff, man. And that
We're going to talk to Powder Emperor.
believe
Hey
we've talked
there,
about Powder Emperor before.
I have a feeling, yeah.
I think
This
I
is
have.
a Promise and Forest. How are you doing?
Good evening. Doing pretty well.
If I remember correctly, Powder Emperor either is Imperious or has the same argument style as Imperious.
Well, I'm on my cocaine binge right now, so I'm Powder Emperor.
Right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, yeah. So like, are we gonna have any kind of like close to a serious discussion, or are we just gonna?
Well, we can't. Let's just not no ad hominems, and we can no subliminal like passive. Let's just have a good discussion. How about that?
You first.
What's your reason for calling?
My assertion. I think I put in the calling.
You on a cocaine
I
binge?
know, having faith in atheism is illogical, and it doesn't reflect the scientific method.
I don't have
Cool. I
faith
don't
in
have
atheism.
So that's
I don't either. That's not a
fine,
thing
and
that
I
exists.
don't really care about the scientific method. That has nothing to do with why I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist because I don't think that it is logical to be a theist. So can you tell me why it's logical to be a theist? Why should I be a theist?
Yes, an essential part of the scientific method is appeal.
Is saying I should believe in a God. Like, explain it to me like a God. I was homeschooled using a Christian curriculum. So just tell me why I promise should believe that a God exists.
Because it's the best explanatory hypothesis for the existence that you are in.
No, it's not. Pardon me, that's not true. It is the best explanatory hypothesis. It is not the best hypothesis, nor is it a testable hypothesis, nor is it a hypothesis that actually stands up to anything. It is an easily rejectable hypothesis. I'm pretty sure, aren't you the one that said that you're a lawyer and that means that you have a Juris Doctorate and that means that I should bow to you for having a superior degree?
You want to start the ad hominem? Because we can start that if we want. And I
He's
can roll
asking,
you
he's
over
just
there.
quoting you right now. He's just
That's not an ad hominem.
No, I made
asked you if that's what you said.
that you can't answer, so you get riled up and emotional. I just said
I'm asking you if that's what you said. That's all.
I said the scientific method, okay, an essential part of the scientific method is the appeal to the best explanatory hypothesis.
I don't care about
Okay.
that.
But I just
So you don't care about the scientific method, you don't care about science. There we go.
That's
You
not what
care
I
about
said.
what your emotions tell you.
That's not what I said. So
What is
I'm
science?
asking you,
What is science? What are scientific experiments based on?
I can hang up on you if we.
Oh, because you can, but you just got
I'm
exposed.
asking a question. No, I'm asking a question. So nobody
Yeah.
got exposed for anything.
Okay,
Can you
go
please can you please tell me why I should think that a God exists? Also, is there a
It's the best
specific God that you believe in?
Well, let's start at the premise. Is there a God? Yes, it's the best explanatory hypothesis.
If
For
you're a theist,
example,
I
there's-
assume you think that there's a God.
Yeah, no. If you want me to
Why
get
I
into it,
should-
I can.
That's why I'm
Hold on,
asking
I can.
a question.
Sure, I can.
This is the issue. man. Is that, like, we're trying-
Okay, so go ahead. I'll wait till you're done. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. We are the hosts after all. So like because this is the thing that I remember several conversations I've had with you over this time. And like, it is always this way, is that like, we're trying to just hammer something out here. We're trying to get to the root of this problem. And you keep accusing us of like either ad hominem, which nobody's committed an ad hominem yet. Or you'll put words in our mouth and say, okay, so you don't care about science and scientific method. Promise just said that she wasn't familiar with it because that wasn't her upbringing. I do care about the scientific method. And I agreed with you that your hypothesis of a God is very explanatory, but equally as explanatory is the hypothesis that the universe is a simulation in a computer game. And that doesn't mean that it's true. It's just easy to explain everything with that hypothesis. But in order for a hypothesis to be something you take seriously, you need to actually have experimentation and data to back it up. And you don't have that for a God. So I can say anything. It's an easily very explanatory hypothesis for the universe. It doesn't make it real. And so I would end up rejecting that hypothesis as unsubstantiated. You have to be able to fail to reject the hypothesis in order to move forward. And like, you haven't given me a reason to do that yet with this God. You just said this God exists, so it does, basically. And that's like just not good enough for me.
Okay, 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Do I get that same amount of timer?
Well, if you can behave, sure.
Like that, can you
Okay,
just
well,
answer?
I will. You want the answer, right? Okay, so first of all, it begins at the fundamental fabric of reality, the 213 cosmological constants. Then it expands to the mathematical impossibility that the trillions of calculations, the trillions of restrictions, the trillions of laws that restrict the universe could have occurred at one moment without mind. Because randomality, okay, and random chance does not create laws, patterns, or pattern recognition. By definition, it doesn't. In addition, information
Yes, it is. When does random chance ever create information?
Like quite a bit, actually. If you talk to anybody who does like, well, I'm in the middle of speaking, actually. So if you talk to anybody who does like, we have a few hosts on here who are like software engineers and whatnot, and who do basically like random number generation. We talked to somebody, or we had somebody on that did random number generators. So that was like his job. And frequently in the machine that was designed to be as random as possible, they would have patterns pop up. And when you talk about information in the way that you are, generally speaking, what people are saying, and you correct me if I'm off base with what you're getting at here, but generally when people use the word information in the way that you are, it comes down to like something like, for example, DNA, where it's like, this is a coded sequence that has some sort of repeatability, some sort of patterning in it that can convey some message. And like, yeah, that can pop up in its most basic form, at least, through random processes. And once that gets started, Darwinian evolution takes over, and it just kind of follows very, very logically from there. So like, I don't know, man, I feel like we can go down this like weird Darth Dawkins rabbit hole, and if all we want, and it's not really going to get us anywhere, because at the end of the day, what I feel like—
So you come on and ramble and have a struggle session to yourself and don't want people to talk. Very leftist.
See, that's
it's
funny.
him right now. You're
Well,
wasting
you
your time.
just ran. I think I
that.
had 36 seconds. I timed myself to be able to talk and do that all live. So if you don't want if you don't want a good faith caller, don't have people.
The problem is literally what I was saying when you started throwing a temper tantrum, is that we can go down this Darth Dawkins rabbit hole of like presuppositionalist whatever, of like, you know, well, we have to assume there's some mind and the randomality and the blah, blah, blah. And like, we can do this all day long.
It's peach and plum season. I love it.
Anywhere, because I hypothesize and now have some evidence that at the end of the day, there is absolutely nothing that we could possibly say that would avoid the conclusion of you saying, well, you didn't let me have complete control of the entire program and say whatever the hell I wanted to say. And when I said that this is science definitively, which you have admitted you don't have a science background, you're a lawyer supposedly, so your gross misunderstanding of science is all you have. And when we don't accept your gross misunderstanding of science, that means that we don't like science. And then you're going to blend in some weird straw man. You complain about ad hominems, and then are going to say, well, you're behaving like you're a liberal, you're behaving like you're a leftist, you're behaving like this or that other thing that you don't like. And then you're going to walk away from this as if you've won an argument, because we simply refuse to play with you, because we didn't want to wallow in the same shit that you are and didn't want to just let you bark at us this whole time. That means that we're too scared to talk to you, when really all it is us just being genuinely kind of bored of the attitude, because it's been 7 minutes.
By pointing out what kind of conversation we can engage in, because maybe you're willing to actually, because if this is real, if this God exists, I assume you have lots of ways to point this out to us. So, but I realized something, because I don't know that I've talked to you. I'd like to know specifically, how do you define God?
That's a good question.
Have you unmuted now? So how would you define
do I
God?
get the 6 minutes to counter? If not, it's just bad faith. And you guys prove my point.
Powder?
Well, no, it's not.
And if you're answering honestly,
Okay, so don't say you're good faith and you're correct and he's a loser.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Is that you're just
so
going to let your
ad
emotions
hominem.
get—
I love it. I'm just going to make this clip
Yes.
where he calls in and says, let's not ad hominem. And then we'll fast forward to where he calls me what he just did. That's cool.
Yep.
I'll give you
That's
one
what I'm
last
talking
chance. And then I'm going to request that you be banned from the show, because I don't want any other host to deal with what you said.
Before you do, I'm going to go ahead and make another testable prediction here, because that's how science works. That Imperius here, when you unmute him, is not going to answer anything you say, but is instead going to whine and bitch and moan about how unfair we are, because we, as hosts of the call-in show, kept control of the call-in show, and that we are tone policing him and restricting his blah, 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 and this isn't a good faith argument, and he's not going to say anything useful at all. He's just going to bitch about the fact that he didn't get to behave like a fucking child on live television. That's my idea. That's my thought.
I'm going to give him one last chance. Here's my question.
Sure.
I would like to know his definition of God, and you get to keep talking as long as you're answering stuff. So if you waste my time by not answering the question in the beginning, then I know that you don't want to engage honestly. I've been patient. I haven't said anything. I'm just asking you questions. So if I unmute you and you answer my question without wasting our time, we can continue the conversation. I'd like an apology for the ad hominem you just used, but I'll be okay with that. So again, the question is, can you tell me your definition of God?
When you're good faith, I'll be good faith too. Simple.
See, exactly. I told you. You're just going to bitch about how we're not good faith.
It's very simple.
Powder, can you tell me one point? So Powder,
it's very simple. Wait, no, wait.
I think he really is in his cocaine.
Okay,
I'll be honest with you.
Honestly. So I'm going to ask you when I have had bad faith during this call, because I barely said anything. And I've muted you a couple times because we've been trying to communicate something, because I personally have been eager to hear your answers, and I've been trying to give you a chance. Here I am again, rescuing you in this conversation. Would you like to tell me either your definition of God or when I have had bad faith in this conversation?
When you allow dialogue, I'll answer.
Okay.
I don't think he stopped talking that whole time. I don't think he stopped talking. Wait, can I ask him questions?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Powder Emperor / Imperior / person who calls himself a lawyer but also behaves like a fucking toddler and could not possibly handle their own in front of a judge, at least not a judge anywhere where I come from. Do you feel big and strong when you call women bad words? Does that make you feel like a big, strong man? You're unmuted.
Only when I'm giving them a...
I have another question for you.
In Virginia, Frontier wants to talk to us about, I don't know. Hey, Virginia, you're on with Nick and Matt.
Hello, good evening.
How you doing?
I'm great. This is my first time tuning in. I was recommended the show by a friend of mine online, and so I just wanted to jump on and talk to you guys. So from what I gathered, both of you are atheists, and so I wanted to know, like, why are you guys atheists? What made you want to do that?
Well, Nick's always been an atheist, and I was a fundamentalist Southern Baptist who was studying to be a preacher when I found out that I didn't have any good reason to believe that the philosophical arguments were flawed or lacking evidential support. And until such time as somebody can present a case supported by evidence for why someone should in fact believe that a God exists, I can't.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that and say that for me, it wasn't sort of a question of like, oh, I wasn't actually raised as an atheist. It was just that religion was not an important part of my experience growing up, although kind of like ancillary, secondary religious stuff. Like I was in the Boy Scouts. I was very involved in that. I studied, I went to a number of my friends' sort of churches, like you do when you're a 13, 14-year-old kid and you want to just like hang out with your friends and hey, they do this fun thing for youth during the week. And it's a great place to hang out with people your own age. And so you go do that. So it wasn't that I wasn't exposed to it. The thing, the framing of your question of like, why do we choose to do that? I think we need to like flip that around a little bit. A lot of people are religious because they were raised in religion. And people should ask themselves, like Matt was just saying, why do you believe this? And until you can answer that question in a way that, shows a lot of convincing evidence that convinces you to believe something that's, pretty extraordinary. And until you can have some good reasons behind that, I think folks should ask themselves, wait, why do I believe this thing? And so what we're advocating is not, necessarily saying I believe there are no gods as much as I'm unconvinced. And, maybe in my certain spicier days, I will say I will make the claim there is no God. But I think that ultimately it kind of boils down to I'm unconvinced. You can show me some good evidence, then sure, but haven't been shown that evidence yet. And so I live my life in this way because I have all these values that I care about as a humanist and that I've arrived at in a secular way because I've looked at a lot of other religious approaches, a lot of philosophical approaches to morality, to ethics, and that's fine. Those work for me. And like Matt said, we don't want to drop all religious people into this bucket and say, oh, all those people who believe they're dumb or whatever. That's not the case. And in fact, some of our closest partners, the people we rely on, are religious because we recognize that the threats that we deal with here in the U.S. That are coming from Christian nationalism require religious people to push back on and say, wait, I don't want my faith to be used in this way. And then we can have the conversation over drinks later. That's sort of hey, have you guys given some thought as to why your faith is so commonly misused in this way? Maybe we should grapple with that a little bit. But we can have that conversation sort of separately from the oh my God, our democracy is on fire conversation, and we need to do something about that. So we can do both. We can walk and chew gum on those.
Okay, that's interesting. And so Nick, you're the one who was raised Southern Baptist, you said, or am I getting you guys backwards?
No, that's me, Matt.
Matt, okay.
Yeah.
And so Matt, you were raised Southern Baptist. Now that's funny because I'm the opposite. So I was raised in the Christian faith. That's the perspective that I'm coming from, is Christianity. But I was raised non-denom, but as I've gotten older, I've now become very fundamental, independent fundamental Baptist. And so I find it very interesting that that's where you started off, but you decided to change because you felt like there wasn't enough evidence to back up that belief system. Well, I've come to the exact opposite conclusion. And so what was it about Christianity for being a fundamental?
Well, I can't believe the supernatural claims of the Bible because I haven't seen evidence, and you're saying you came to the exact opposite conclusion. So what evidence do you have that the supernatural claims of the Bible are correct?
So when it comes to my belief, I believe that you can be a Christian and not necessarily hang on every single word of the Bible. Now I believe every word of the Bible. But when it comes to being a Christian, it's just a matter of believing on Christ. The gospel is separate from the entire Bible.
That's not only not an answer to my question. That's not only not an answer to my question. It completely avoids what you claimed. I don't believe because I haven't seen evidence. And you said you've gone the exact opposite way. So all I asked is, what's the evidence? And then you started saying how you think you can be a Christian without hanging on every word. I'm aware that there's many different ways for people to think they're a Christian. I don't get to decide who's a Christian. I don't think anybody else gets to decide it. There's over 1,000 denominations and they disagree on every single point of doctrine. You said you had evidence, and I just want to know what the evidence is.
Okay, so to be more direct, I believe that the best evidence for Christianity being legitimate is the history that we have of the Bible. And the history that we have of the flood. The evidence for those two things are the most strong proofs for Christianity.
Okay. So first of all, there isn't good scientific evidence of a global flood. That simply didn't happen, and there's been no demonstration that it's possible or that it did happen. But let's just assume for a second that there absolutely, like we could absolutely confirm there was a global flood. How does that confirm Christianity at all?
Well, because Christianity, the Bible teaches that, and not only does it teach that in Genesis, but in the New Testament, it says that in the latter days that men would be scoffers and they would be willingly ignorant of one of the main things being the flood, and that is backed up by what is happening currently. And so not only does the Bible teach stories.
If I say that people are going to make fun of me for believing nonsense, and they make fun of me for believing nonsense, that doesn't prove what I believe was true.
Well, if you predicted it several thousand years in advance, and there were
That's
other
not a
things
prediction. No. And that's not a prediction. That's not even a remarkable prediction, especially since the Bible was written while people were already scoffing at this. So there isn't scientific evidence to confirm a global flood. But what I was asking was, even if we granted that a global flood occurred, how does that demonstrate the truth of Christianity? Because I don't see how a global flood can in any way demonstrate the truth that God came down, impregnated a virgin in order to give himself human form so that he could sacrifice himself to himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he's in charge of. Where's the evidence that any of that actually happened? Because even if a global flood occurred, or even if a local flood occurred, which is Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's what others have advocated for, not everybody believes that the flood was covering the whole earth, but even if we had just a local flood, none of that proves Christianity.
That's what I was saying earlier. You were kind of accusing me of beating around the bush, but I was trying to say that you can be a Christian and not necessarily believe everything. And so you can be a Christian and believe.
So you're back to not presenting the evidence. See, I can't believe unless there's evidence, and I can't believe unless there's evidence, and you can't present evidence.
Well, I said another thing that I believe in is that the history of the Bible. And so the Bible, the clear history that we have.
I'm aware of the history of the Bible. We have.
Are you?
Do you know who wrote? Oh yeah. Do you know who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? No, you don't, because they're all anonymous, and we don't have originals of any of them, and we have copies of translation. They are anonymous. None of those are signed. If you think that the Gospels are signed and that we have originals, you are not in keeping with even the best New Testament scholars within Christianity.
No, of course we don't have the originals, but we don't need the originals because we have copies, and God preserved the copies like He said He would.
You don't get to say that God preserved the copy. You have to prove that God preserved the copy, and without the original, which you don't have, what you have is a copy of a translation of a copy, and nothing about that shows that it's true. So, like if you open up, if you open up like I've got an NIV right here, which I could open up to Matthew.
Well, that's a fake Bible.
What does it say about? Sorry, what's that?
I said that's a fake Bible. You gotta have a real Bible.
Oh, okay. So you're not real. Somebody had you call in to be a prank caller.
No.
So you think that you're AV 1611 only. So you're only going to go with a flawed translation that was created by a king in order to justify his divorces.
No, that's a myth.
It's not a myth. It's a fact, but it's not a myth. I have more evidence for that than you have for anything that you've uttered yet today. How do you demonstrate that the King James Version AV 1611 is the right one and the NIV is the fake one? But I wasn't even pointing, by the way, to the fake NIV. I was pointing to the cover sheet that's in the NIV that talks about the authorship of the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew's author is unknown, as is the Gospel of Mark and Luke. They are unsigned. You can go to New Testament, you can go to earlychristianwritings.com, you can go to any book on the process of canonization, and any book, you can go to the damn Wikipedia article for each of those Gospels, and it will affirm what I'm telling you, which is that those things were attributed to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John as a matter of church tradition, and even if they were all written by the person whose name on them, we don't know what the originals said, and we have no way of showing that what they say, what they claim, is true. When you say that you believe because of evidence, I keep asking for evidence and you keep avoiding it. Where's the evidence that the Gospel of Matthew, where's the evidence, where, I keep cutting you off because you keep deflecting and saying, well, here's something else I believe, here's something else I believe, I can believe you can be a Christian this. Where's the evidence that what the Gospel of Matthew claims in your AV 1611 Bible is true? Where's the evidence for that?
Okay. The evidence for that is the fact that the whole Bible was written over the course of over 1,500 years, and even in your...
The Bible is always going to be evidence of something they believe. Belief is not proof or evidence. It's belief. Be lie.
It was saying that, oh, we can't know it's true because we don't have the originals. It still lines up with itself. It was written by over 40 different authors, over 3 continents, over the course of 1,500 years. And what we have today still matches up with each other. The Old Testament matches up with the New Testament. It all lines up perfectly. There are no contradictions in it. And so that's what God said.
That's a lie.
Isaiah, where he said that.
So first of all, I asked what the evidence was that the Gospel of Matthew, in your particular one, is true in what it claims. The fact that books are consistent with each other in broad strokes doesn't mean that any specific claim. Where's the proof that zombies rose up and marched on Jerusalem, as the Gospel of Matthew says? Where's the proof that that happened?
Well, I have proof of that happening.
And yet you believe it, right?
Claim in the Bible.
Do you have proof of any specific? Do you have Do you have proof? Do you have proof of any specific claim in the Bible?
Well, define proof.
Can you demonstrate independently verifiable, objective, empirical evidence to confirm any claim in the Bible?
Yeah, I mean, we have very good evidence for the fact that Jesus died and rose again.
No, you don't even have evidence that Jesus lived, let alone that he died and rose again.
This is disingenuous, because to say that Jesus
it's not disingenuous. It's not disingenuous. I'm sorry that you are ignorant of the scholarship. I'm not saying that Jesus didn't exist. I'm saying, how can you prove that he did?
Because the claims were made during the time when they could have been falsified, and they were not. And he was
the claims could not have been. The claims could not have been falsified, and you have no way of saying when the claims were made, because no first century individual outside of the Gospels speaks about Jesus at all. Nobody seems to know about his life, his ministry. Nobody seems to know about the temple veil. Nobody seems to hear about the zombies marching on Jerusalem. None of that is supported by any first century historian at all. That doesn't mean Jesus didn't exist, but I'm saying, give me a claim for which you have objectively verifiable empirical evidence to support that the claim is true. What's the claim?
The objective verifiable truth is the fact that it says it and it could have been falsified if it was true.
No, I'm sorry. The Bible is the claim. It is not the evidence.
It is the evidence, because to say that.
No, it's not. It's not. It is not the evidence. You simply don't understand what the fuck evidence is if you think the claim is the evidence. The Bible is the claim. The Bible is where it says this happens, and if you have evidence that it happened, you present the evidence. You don't present yet another claim. What is the evidence that your claim is correct?
If you let me finish, then I can explain. Do you want me to explain?
I have given you, stop talking. I have given you multiple opportunities, and all you do is whine about how I'm cutting you off. Present a claim. Present a claim. Keep talking over me and see how well that's going to fucking work out for you. Guess how much anybody's going to get to hear you if you keep fucking interrupting me. Present a claim. It's my fucking show, dumbass. Present a claim and then present the objective. Okay, I'm going to mute you since you can't fucking listen because your brain is desperately trying to protect you from being embarrassed on live TV. But it's too late. You have been. I would like you to make one claim about something that's supernatural that happened and the objectively verifiable evidence that supports that claim. That's all I'm asking. I'm going to unmute you. You tell me what supernatural claim you're going to defend, and then you present the objectively verifiable evidence to support that claim, or we're done. What's the claim?
What he's not going to do with that. The claim is my wife's name.
I know what your wife's name is. It shows up on the screen. I didn't call her anything other than a name, than her actual name there.
Oh, you called her
I would like to know
dumbass.
what claim she's saying and what the actual verifiable objective evidence for it is. That's all I want. Am I going to talk to Virginia or the backup dancer? What's that? Oh, you run away. Okay. Did I cut you off that time? I'm sorry that you don't know what evidence is, but the book is not the claim. The book is not the evidence. The book is the claim. When the book says something like, Jesus fed thousands of people with 5 loaves and 3 fishes, or 7 loaves. By the way, contradictions, they do exist. They don't exist at the rate that you seem to think that they don't exist. But I'm sorry that you are both monumentally ignorant of the facts around this, but I've been dealing with this for decades now. And when you say that you have evidence of supernatural claims, and every time I ask, you're like, well, another thing I believe is, well, you're not letting me finish. Well, you don't have to hang on every word of the Bible. Why not? Why don't you have to hang on? Oh, you do hang, you say you do hang on every word of the Bible, but you don't have to. I didn't ask if you had to. But you do. I guess we're going to move on, since you cowardly ran away after bringing in your backup answer yet again. This ain't my first go round. But you want to know why I'm an atheist? I'm an atheist because of people like you. People like you who are monumentally cocksure about things, and you think you have evidence when you don't. People like you who think that the NIV is a fake Bible, but your King James AV 1611 version is the real Bible, despite the fact that it's written in English, so it can't be the real Bible. It must, by definition, be a copy of a translation of a copy of a copy of a translation of a copy of a copy of an oral tradition that was passed down. I'll bet you $1,000 neither you nor your backup answer can read through it in the original Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew that I tend to study it in, and I'm not even an expert. I'm a newbie at that stuff. But anybody who thinks that there's exactly one version and the AV 1611 version is the one is already at a level of gullibility and having been duped by nonsense that they are demonstrating.
And the King James Bible got a copyright. Who owns that copyright? Homework.
They don't understand the nature of evidence. They don't understand the burden of proof. They don't understand what should be compelling. I'm an atheist because people like you are out there advocating things that you cannot demonstrate, that you do not have evidence for. You're out there trying to claim a higher moral superiority of this. You have your dial tuned to God, and the rest of us just don't. But when it comes to evidence, you fail. Epic fail. Embarrassing epic fail. And so to your buddy in chat who was like, be nice, I was nice. But when I'm asking for evidence, when I'm told that I searched for evidence and failed, they searched for evidence and found it, and then they never present any evidence, you're a waste of my motherfucking time when it comes to these discussions, because you don't understand evidence. You don't understand anything about what should confirm which version of a Bible is actually telling a true story.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow.
Now we're going to move on to Eric, pronouns are he, him, from Wisconsin, who says that God doesn't send people to hell, they send themselves. Eric, how are you doing today?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, so do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, that we send ourselves to hell?
Yeah, sure. I just got a question real quick.
Yeah.
If it's a choice, if you got a choice between a reward and a punishment, it's still a choice, right?
I mean, it depends. Yeah. So, like, are you saying, like, are you saying that just if someone's like, hey, I'm either going to give you a piece of candy or I'm going to slap you in the face, which one do you want? Or do you mean, like, if you do this thing, I will either reward you, or if you do that thing, I'll punish you? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, basically the first one and the second one.
It was.
Well, see, there's the problem,
yeah,
right? We need to separate that out.
Yeah. If I offer you either a piece of candy or a slap in the face, that's just an honest choice to, like, which one do you like? But if I tell you, if you go pick up that car, I'll give you a piece of candy, and if you don't, I'll slap you in the face. I can say you made the choice not to lift the car, but at the end of the day, it's not really a choice, is it? So, like, what exactly do you mean by that?
It's not a choice. Telling someone to do something is not a choice.
I agree with that. Yep.
We've established that. So cool. Where does this go?
Whether basically you're choosing to do whether you spend eternity in hell or heaven.
Well, I thought you just said that telling somebody to do something isn't a choice. So if God tells me, believe in me, do these things, follow my rules, all this stuff, or you go to hell, you just said that's not a choice.
That's a choice. That is a choice.
The choice that we're being forced to make that we just established in the previous example is not how choice works.
Because God's not demanding you do.
I'm not demanding that you lift a car. I'm saying if you don't lift a car, I'm going to slap you. That's all.
Like, if God is not the one demanding that we worship him in order to avoid hell, then what force or power beyond God that God cannot control or prevent is sending us to hell? If we're going to hell because we're sinful, who is sending us there?
Yourself.
Oh, I don't want to go. Is that it? Is that the whole thing?
That's not how it works.
If God sends me to hell, I will not go. What's the worst he can do? Send me to hell. Like,
you're choosing yourself to go there by not accepting Jesus.
And you're choosing to get slapped in the face by not lifting a car. Does that make sense?
I'm choosing What did you say?
Just like we said at the beginning, I said, if I tell you to go lift a car over your head, and if you do it, I'll give you candy, and if you don't, I'll slap you in the face. Is it a choice to get slapped if you don't lift the car? Or are you just going to say, I'm not going to do what? Why is that? You said yourself, that's not a choice. That's a crazy, weird thing, right? So if God says, worship me and follow me and all these things, or I'll send you to hell, that's not a choice, that's a threat. And for you to say that I'm sending myself by not accepting this magical offer, like that doesn't really make any sense.
That's not a threat because you have your whole entire life or whatever.
You have your whole life to lift a car.
Yeah, to live under the threat of
being sent to hell.
Worship God or else.
You have the whole life to lift a car, and I'm going to slap you if you don't. Isn't that still a threat?
No.
Is that a choice is a better question. Is it a choice for you to get slapped because you didn't lift the car?
If someone's telling you to lift the car or else I'll slap you, and you lift the car and you still get slapped, that was not a choice.
And it wouldn't be a choice. That's exactly right, but that's not what we're talking about. You're saying that if I follow this God, I won't go to hell, but if I don't follow him, I will. So, again, that's an ultimatum. It's not a choice on my part.
All I do is love Jesus.
I have a question.
So you can say it's an easy choice. I feel like I want to break down the argument because you're not really seeming to follow the logical principles we're establishing. You might say that it's an easy choice to worship God. I would disagree.
Yeah.
But okay, if that is maybe where the confusion is, because you're like, come on, guys, all you got to do is say some words and then the whole hell problem goes away, then we're still not really talking about a choice. We're not talking about like a free decision.
Right, but you still got a choice.
Right, you've got
It's just not one made freely. It's one made under duress and threat of eternal damnation. It's the worst possible threat you could ever receive, except it's not real, so we turn it up times infinity using magical thinking. It's the scariest possible conceptualization. It's the worst threat anybody could actually imagine, by definition. So, yeah, it's a threat.
It's a threat, it's a choice.
Okay, if I rob a bank and I put a gun up to somebody's head and say, give me the money in the register, yes, they have a choice to not give me the money. But at the end of the day, that's not a choice that's freely made, is it?
It's a choice whether you accept Jesus or not.
I wish Jesus would take the gun away from my head before asking me to make that choice.
That's exactly right. Like like I just said a second ago, I don't know if you heard because you were talking. If I rob a bank and I put a gun up to somebody's head and I say, give me the money in the register, they have a choice to not give me the money. But that's not really a free choice, right? They're going to give me the money because they don't want to get shot. So if you're telling me, make this choice this way, and if you don't, I'll torture you for all eternity. Yeah, technically I could choose to not do it still, but that's still a choice that's not being made freely. That's still a threat looming over me.
No, that's a free choice because you know the consequences.
Right, and it's still a crappy consequence. You get that, right? Let me ask you another question. Just try something different because this doesn't seem to be going anywhere, but I think we can try something else that's a little bit different. Does anything happen ever at all that's outside of God's control?
Does anything happen outside of God's control?
Yeah. Can I possibly do something that God doesn't want me to do, that God wishes did never happen? Can I go against God's will?
Because you got free will.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking. Does anything in the universe, does anything happen that God doesn't have control over, that God doesn't want to happen? Can anything violate God's will?
Well, I think that God
Prayer
already knows what's going to happen. But like us humans, we got free will. So like before we do something, God already knows we're going to do it.
Right. But I'm asking you, can I do something that God doesn't want?
What's the nature of that free will?
No. People do stuff that God doesn't want them to do every day.
Okay. But he does know what's going to happen already. He knows the outcome.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. So then here's a follow-up question then. I'm an atheist. I'm a very outspoken atheist. I make it a part of my life's mission to help other people also free themselves and become atheists as well. So I'm a pretty bad guy in this God's eyes, right? If I were to die right now, definitely going to hell. And even if something happens later on, like the change of my mind, there have been other atheists that are similar to me that are, certainly by these rules in hell right now. God knew what was going to happen with them. God, from the moment before they were even born, God knew who they were going to turn out to be, what they were going to do with their lives, all these things. So the purpose of their life was to go to hell. God made them knowing that they would go to hell, and that's fine with him. Why? How is that a choice?
God didn't make them to go to hell.
But they didn't have a choice.
Choosing themselves, they do have a choice.
But God already knew the outcome, and he still made them. God has a choice too, right? For sure. If God knows if I make this person, he's going to go to hell, he could just not make that person. Or he could change the circumstances around them, make sure they have a better preacher, make sure they have a better parent, something like that.
Meet them in Damascus, show up.
Make the right books, something, help me find my car keys in the morning, something. Like he could do all these things.
You're saying about God, not God creating you, that just shows how much God loves
He loves me so much that he made me knowing that I would burn in hell for all eternity.
You get 15 seconds or 100 years of life on earth and then eternal hellfire and damnation. That's a bitch of a deal.
Doesn't sound like a lot of love to me. What if I told you that I have a wife and I love her so much that if she didn't love me back, I would lock her in my garage and set her on fire? Would that be a love? Would that be a choice?
For eternity.
Would that be a choice that she's making to love me so that she doesn't get set on fire? And would I be a loving husband because I was willing to burn her in my garage?
Is that a choice you made? Yeah, that would be a choice that you made.
What about her?
Are we back to the definition of choice?
Yeah, right. If you burn your wife, that's your choice.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking you. If I tell my wife, if you don't love me, I'm going to set you on fire, does she have a choice? And also, am I a loving, good husband? Those are two questions I want you to answer.
If you set her on fire, then you never loved her to begin with.
And if God sends us to hell, he never loved us to begin with.
Wrong.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
God does love you.
Let me ask you a question, Eric, and this is a genuine question. Just yes or no. This is not a gotcha. I just genuinely want to know. Do you have anyone in your life that you genuinely love with all your heart?
Yeah.
What would that person have to do for you to condone them being tortured for all eternity?
What would that person have to do?
What choice would they have to make?
What choices would that person have to make for you to be like, you know what, the best thing could happen right now is that you get tortured forever. That would be a really good thing. What would cause you to make that choice, that decision?
Nothing.
Yeah, me too.
You might be more moral than God.
It sounds like you are. It sounds like you're a lot of a better person than God is, because there's not a single thing my wife could possibly do that would make me want her to be hurt. So if God is like, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, the best thing that could happen is that you go to the lake of fire. That doesn't sound like love to me.
It is love because you got a choice.
Yeah, and hey, man, that person that you love in your life, they made a choice too. Is there any choice that they could make?
Your choice.
Is there any choice that the person that you love could make that would make you think that they should be tortured? Any choice at all that they could make that would make you think it's a good thing for them to go to hell?
I can't think of any right now. But
I couldn't either.
Like I said before,
I couldn't either, and that's the thing.
It's their choice.
As you said, God already knows what's going to happen. God's in charge of all of it. God made hell, right? He's established this moral system. He is the judge of who goes to hell and who doesn't, whether we make the choice or not. It's his rules that we're playing by. So what you're saying is he loves us conditionally. He loves us so much that if we make the wrong choices, he thinks it's a good idea for us to be tortured forever. And you also said you couldn't imagine a single reason to torture anybody that you love. And I agree with you there. There's not a single thing that somebody could do that I would say you should be tortured, no matter who they are, whether I love them or not, but especially if I love them. I think it would be really gross if I were to tell my wife I love you so much, but if you did this thing, I think it would be really good that you got tortured. That'd be pretty awful.
It's totally different.
Why?
It's because it's eternity.
Yeah, if I tell my wife you should be
so
tortured
much
for
worse.
eternity, that is different. It's exponentially more horrible.
It's more horrible to go to heaven than hell.
In my opinion, they're both awful, but that's not what we're talking about.
See, you're making a choice, right? I mean, you could right now accept Jesus in your heart, but you're choosing not to.
Yes,
right?
because any God,
angrily.
Yes, I am making that choice because any God that would set up a system like that is evil. Any God that would have a system like that, where you burn in eternity because you didn't like them, is a monster, is an egotistical maniac. And why on earth would I worship somebody like that?
Because he loves you and he gave you life.
I encourage you to
There
look
are
up the
people who
definition of
love
love.
you. That's fair to say, but just because somebody loves you does not mean that they're going to treat you right.
And if somebody does love you, they probably wouldn't torture you.
Well, God doesn't torture you. And the demons in hell
That God created,
Yeah, that
and the
God
system
created.
that he established that he has control over, unless he's not all powerful, but I don't think you want to pull on that thread.
I know God does. I think God does see what we're going to do in the future. But see, us as humans, we don't know what path we're going to take in the future. You know what I mean? We're just going along as we go.
Which means that God made us for the intent purpose of going to hell. If I knew what was going to happen in the outcome, then me setting that outcome going is on purpose. If I fire a gun at somebody, I know that the outcome is going to be that they die. So I did this, and I know that somebody's going to die over there. I know the outcome. If God makes me into a person knowing that I am going to go to hell, then he did it on purpose. He sent me to hell on purpose.
It could have made the choice to die.
Sending yourself to hell.
And when we're right back
I think we're in circles.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just watch this video when it comes out on loop, and I think you may experience a little bit of what we're feeling now.
Yeah.
I understand that this is tricky material. It's very emotionally fraught, but if you try to think through piece by piece and follow the logic and the reason rather than the emotion, I think that you'll start to see where we're coming from here.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and move on, Eric. Thanks so much for calling in. We appreciate you giving your thoughts.
Nicole in Maryland, welcome to the Atheist Experience. You are on with Jenna and Matt, and you think we're wrong and that Jesus is important. So here's your opportunity to convince us.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
So Jesus is important, huh? Hello?
Hello? Nicole?
Yeah.
Oh, you're on the air.
Okay. You want to present your case?
Sure. Why do you hate Jesus?
Well, I thought you had a case to present, which was that Jesus is important.
Okay.
Do you actually want to have this conversation? You seem like you're resentful of being here.
I couldn't.
I want to know why he hates Jesus so much.
No, I don't hate Jesus. I don't hate.
So, okay, so then tell me.
I don't think. Okay.
No.
I don't hate Jesus because I don't think Jesus exists.
No. Okay, and why?
Because there's no evidence that Jesus exists. Just now, maybe he existed once upon a time, but I don't hate him. I just don't think that he's a divine creature.
You never know if he, right? But he was gone way before we even were here on the planet. So I'm not understanding how you can even judge a person.
Well, I can only judge what's written in the Bible because
He brings happiness and love throughout your life, and you just sit there and you're a jerk.
You seem to be taking this very personally.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
May I ask why?
Yeah, talk to Jenna because clearly I'm a jerk. And all I want to know is
modern life, and God has been there for me, and it's just a very powerful experience. It comes from the heart. It's not like things that you can say in words. It's just in the heart and how it makes you feel.
Okay, so I can understand that this Jesus idea of Jesus or evidence of Jesus, or this brought you some solace, right? Some peace. I wouldn't be out, I'm sure. Okay, so what if I were to tell you that may not have been? What if it wasn't Jesus? What if it was you? What if it was a combination of?
I agree with you because I don't.
Well, I'm not making any statements. I'm literally just asking.
No.
Well, no. Hold on. You're gonna mute for just a second. What I'm saying is, I'm not trying to tell you anything. I'm trying to get you. Oh, did she just hang up?
no, it's muted.
Okay. I'm just trying to get you to consider the possibility that it might be something else. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not telling you that in any way. All I'm asking is for you to just consider for a second that it may have been something else. And if it was, I just want to know your perspective on that. That's all. Oh, so sorry, you're unmuted. Trying to unmute you. Sorry. Okay.
I don't know. I would like to know what that would be like.
Well, so can I make some suggestions of possibilities?
Please. Okay. Yeah.
So I used to think that Jesus was doing the same things for me. For my whole life, I thought that Jesus was there to protect me and to hold me, and that he was what was getting me through the hard times that I was experiencing. But then after just a bit of time and a bit of exposure to just different ideas, I came to the conclusion, and you don't have to come to this conclusion, I came to the conclusion that it was myself that got me through that. And so that's just one possibility. What if that was true? What if it was you that got you through your hard time, and that it was you that was comforting yourself? What if? That's all I'm asking.
I agree. I do.
So what I wonder, Nicole, though, is Nicole, I wonder, are you familiar with Dumbo and Dumbo's magic feather?
Yes.
Yeah, so they gave Dumbo this magic feather. So if there was no magic in the feather, the magic was in Dumbo the whole time. So how do we tell the difference between how can you or I tell the difference between whether Jesus is helping you or whether you are helping you in crediting Jesus? How do we tell the difference?
I don't know.
I don't either, but you're the one.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Nicole.
Right? I'm just saying I'm halfway.
Nicole, what I'm saying is you called in to ask why I'm mad at Jesus, why I hate Jesus. And now you're saying that you don't know how to tell the difference between whether you're helping you or whether Jesus is helping you. But you called in and seemed to be convinced that it was Jesus that helping you and that we're just dense for not recognizing this. And now we've gotten to the point, and this is wonderful, where we agree. I don't know how to tell the difference between Jesus helping you and you helping you crediting Jesus. But at a minimum, can you see why I don't have a reason to believe in Jesus?
Are you done?
I asked a question.
I mean, like I said, it's either A or B. I'm trying to find that out. The title was to tell you, why do you hate Jesus? Because that's what I've heard about the show, is you guys don't believe.
Stop going with what you've heard. Stop going with what you've heard about this. Stop. Nicole, listen. listen, Nicole. Nicole, listen. No, you're not. You're talking. When you listen, your mouth is closed. If you are listening to what people have said about the show rather than judging it for yourself, that's a mistake. And if you're listening to what people say about Jesus instead of judging it for yourself based on evidence, that's a mistake. But if you recognize that you can't tell the difference between you helping yourself or Jesus helping you, then you at least should also be able to recognize that Jenna and I can't tell the difference between Jesus helping you and you helping you. I have no evidence of anything in your life at all. And so if our position is just, hey, I don't believe that there's a Jesus who's actually doing anything to help you, what is the evidence for it? And your response is, I can't present any evidence. I can't even make this decision myself. All I'm asking is, do you understand why we wouldn't have reason to believe?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's it.
That's really cool of you, to be honest. I really appreciate that.
I mean, I do apologize. I'm just trying to.
No problem. No,
I know.
All of these conversations are potentially contentious because this is important to you. This is about who you are.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So would you like to evaluate how we can know things like that? Because I came to that same point in my journey. I came to discover I didn't know whether to. Go ahead.
No.
So yeah, I came to the same point in my journey where I discovered that I didn't know how to tell if it was reasonable to believe that I did something or whether Jesus was doing it. So Matt happens to be a really good guy at helping people evaluate their logic. Do you want to start into that?
Yeah. It's because, like I said, I'm halfway. I mean, you can believe in God and you can be X, Y, Z, like whatever. And it's like, you know, I could drive home from work and get in a car crash, or this could happen, and you don't know if God would want to stop that, or is whoever is there to stop that. It's just, we don't know if it actually exists. And you guys do have a valid point.
So the thing is, if we don't know,
you do.
If we don't know, then I can't believe something unless I have a good reason for it. Now, granted, I don't know if you know this because I don't know if you know this, Nicole, but because you heard about this in the show, I was a fundamentalist Christian, Southern Baptist, walked down the aisle at the age of 5 at a revival, accepted Jesus into my heart, was active in the church, led youth group stuff, was studying with the intention of being a minister when I found my way out of this, when I found out I didn't have a good reason to believe in this. And for 16 years now, I've been hosting this show, asking people regularly, tell me what you believe and why, present the evidence for your belief. And in the entire time of that show, and in the entire history of the world, no one has ever been able to demonstrate an evidence-based case that there is a God or that there's anything supernatural or that the supernatural is in any way impacting the life we have. I understand that people believe it, and I kind of understand why many people believe it. First of all, it is terrifying to admit you don't know something. It is also terrifying to think, gosh, what's going to happen to me after I die? I don't know. And these religions say I should be this. But if that's the case, how do you pick which religion to follow? Do you seek the best heaven or do you try to avoid the best hell? Wouldn't it be better to say, I can't pick a religious belief because none of them have met their burden of proof. And if there is a God that's going to punish me or reward me after death, why not begin with the assumption that he's going to punish or reward me based on an honest intellectual pursuit of the truth rather than believing whatever somebody told me because I'm afraid? Why would God want you to be afraid?
You know what? What you just said was perfect. And you were absolutely right. I'm just like blown away because like, I mean, God is good, but like, we don't know. How are we supposed to know?
Yeah, and not to blow your mind completely.
That's a great example.
Yeah. I should shut up now, Nicole, but I'm gonna try and blow your mind one more time, and that's this. If you bought into the Christian God at all.
Like you guys, it's cool.
No. If you bought into the Christian God, like you, like many of us, like me, like Jenna and everybody else, I believe God was the good one and Satan was the evil one, right?
Right.
How did you decide which one was good and which one was evil? Because if God wrote on your heart that he's the good one, then you're going to believe he's good, whether he's evil or not. And if you look at the book, who kills more people? Who does more ridiculous stuff? And in my mind, it's just a lot easier to look at the book and go, this is the mistaken thoughts of men. There's nothing behind this. There's not a good God. There's not an evil God. This is man's attempt to control human behavior, to fill in the gaps in our knowledge, to make it easier to struggle with our mortality and with our fear and with our ignorance. And it did a decent job at some stuff, and it did terrible at other things by sanctioning slavery and misogyny and not allowing women to have property or forcing rapists to marry their rape victims. There's so many things that are problematic in the books. And if there were a God and the book is immoral and people got the book wrong, why hasn't God shown up to say, that's not me, that's not what I said, that's not what I believe? And since no God has come forward to correct any of this,
isn't it more likely that we are fumbling through a universe that happened to produce us and doesn't care about us, and it's up to us to care about us. It's up to us to fix our problems. This is why I'm a secular humanist, because even if there is a God, which I can't demonstrate, there's no reason to think that this God intervenes or cares or does anything on our behalf, which means when Jenna needs a ride to the hospital when she's giving birth, it's on me to do that as her friend if nobody else is available. It's not like she can pray and God's going to miracle her ass to the hospital. Even if she was still a believer, that's not going to happen. And so for me, until there's evidence that there is a God, I can't believe that there is one. But I can live a life based on this notion that people are valuable because we share our lives, and what I do impacts you and what you do impacts me. I want you, Nicole, making rational decisions and working alongside of us to make the world better, whether you believe in God or not. But I don't know how that can happen.
Well, then let's do it. I'm ready.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole.
You guys are great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I had a friend. We were on the phone. I guess we were just discussing theology. I believe in God, and you know, I'm respectful in regards to people's beliefs and stuff. And he told me his beliefs. So we just had a conversation. You know, got a little heated, but it was still a respectful conversation. At the end of the day, you know, we were talking on the phone, but I would have shook his hand. You know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, that happens here all the time. So
okay, so he told me about the show. He actually gave me a number, like I guess like a week ago when we had the conversation, and he's like, just like talk in, you know, tune in and talk to them, you know, just talk to them and figure out, you know, what they're talking about and stuff. So,
but what do you believe in? Why?
So, well, before I answer that, I was trying to figure out, you know, like I've never even heard this. I guess is this like the YouTube thing or like the radio or what's going on?
We have been on the live cable access show for many years, and over time we have just diverged from that and just are an internet-only show. We've been going on for 20 years now.
That's good. That's successful.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. They're going to be putting together like a special video package thing for the 20th anniversary, which is going to air immediately following the live show on the 22nd.
Really? Well, congratulations. But yes, I was just saying, you know, like I believe in God. He told me like you used to be a Christian and everything.
God told you that, or your friend?
No. I said my friend.
Okay. Well, I mean, it was not clear because you said I used to believe, or I believe in God, and he told me that you used to be a Christian, and I was like, that would be awesome.
Well, I probably should have made that clear. But yeah, he's something like you used to be a Christian. I mean, I'm listening to like your conversation. You sound very intelligent, so I don't think you're not intelligent.
Well, thanks.
But yeah, that's all I was going to say. I was telling you, like I believe in God, and I want to, you know,
but why?
What are your beliefs? Like, what's your belief system?
What? I believe in most of the same things that anybody else would believe. I just don't believe in that a God exists. I don't believe in anything supernatural. I believe in afterlife. I don't know really how to answer that because it's not like there's a package. Whatever's going on in the background, we got to turn that off, or I'm gonna have to hang up. Because
give me 1 second, please.
Okay, and on the 22nd, they will play best of clips as it says down there at the bottom. See, I know everything that's going on as soon as it pops up on that little.
God is talking to us.
By the way, that reminds me, Mark, I have an idea for a t-shirt that we're going to have to do after we're done with this. But yeah, Calvin, you there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so you asked kind of, I understand the confusion because if you're a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or whatever, you just use that label as kind of like a package for all of your beliefs. But the thing is, there's 1,000 different denominations of Christianity. So saying
4,200
tell me all that much about your beliefs. It just tells you who identifies as a Christian. I'm an atheist. I accept reasonable findings of science. I have views on morality that are based on well-being and freedom and equality and what benefits us. But I couldn't put together a belief system in a package in 30 seconds.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I slipped out of the slip. Sorry, I didn't mean to say Christianity. I meant to say I'm a follower of Christ. I hate saying like denominations and like religion and stuff.
Yeah, but that doesn't do anything else either. Saying you're a follower of Christ that's pretty much just useful saying you're a Christian.
If you understand, like, if you say like that, that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, you know, I try my best to be like Christ, and I believe God died for our sins. Like, if you used to be a Christian, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, that's the thing. This is the shorthand. I suspect that I have a good idea of what you're talking about, but I don't know what you believe specifically or why, because it's going to be different for almost every person who identifies as a Christian.
Okay, so I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe that the Bible is inspired.
The whole Bible? Like all 66 books?
We're under the New Testament, but yes, the whole Bible.
Okay, so we're under the New Testament, but okay. So
I know about. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you know about what?
Well, I'm saying we're under the New Testament now, but I still believe that like the Old Testament is inspired by God too.
So when God said that it was okay to own slaves, that was a good thing?
When God said what?
That it's okay to have slaves? That was a good thing?
Well, he talked about how to be toward your slaves. He said be respectful, and he was talking about being respectful to your slaves and all that stuff. But he never said slavery was bad.
Yeah, you're right. He never said slavery was bad. What it says in Exodus is it tells you who you can buy as slaves and that you can beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days, and that they were your property that you could pass on to your children. Are those good things?
Well, I'm not sure if he said that in the
Exodus 21. Exodus 21. Go read it.
Well, I'm not talking about that verse. I'm talking about he says be respectful towards them, like slavery towards like the African Americans or like anybody.
The Bible says you can own people as property, pass them on to your children, and you can beat them as long as they don't die within 2 days. Is that a good thing?
Like I said, it didn't say that slavery was bad.
Why is it that you can't answer this simple question? Is it a good thing to tell people that they can own people as property, pass that property on to their children, buy slaves from the people around them, and beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days? Is that a good thing?
Was it what? Okay, I'm gonna just try to answer because I think that's a good thing. I can't really just say like that's like obviously it isn't. I can't just say that's the best thing in the world or anything like that.
Oh my gosh! Listen to yourself. I can't say that that's not like the best thing in the world. I can say that it's an abomination that no moral being could have ever said. I can say that loud and proud in every freaking week on the show. Why is it that you can't say that?
Well, I'm not going to call it an abomination like you did. But
why? You don't think that owning people is an abomination?
Yeah, I think it's horrible.
No.
Okay.
And I think this is a prime example of how religions are foster evil.
This is all irrelevant as to whether or not there's a God. But if you're arguing that the Bible is the inspired word of God, and you're reluctant to point out that it contains things that are immoral and sanctions them.
What else would you say is immoral about it?
Well, first of all, I don't think I would need anything else. You only need the one. But also, I would say that instructions to kill homosexuals is immoral. I would say the subjugation of women is immoral. I would say that having women have an inferior position to men is immoral. I would say that selling your daughter into slavery is immoral. I would say that God saying, I'll let you win this war if you sacrifice the first thing that comes out of your house when you get home is immoral. I would say that substitutional atonement is immoral. I would say that the very concept of sin is immoral, the idea that I could somehow offend a God or that something that I could think or do, which has no impact on any other person in reality, is immoral. I would say that holding someone responsible for the sins of their father under the 4th or the 10th generation is immoral. How many more do you need before you recognize that you're making excuses for a book that advocates for immoral positions?
And
damn,
cook them. Opinion, which I respect.
Do you disagree? Do you think those things are morally good?
I don't agree with any of the stuff you said, but the one.
Wait a minute. When you
all
say you
that
don't agree
stuff's
with it,
in the
are you
Bible.
agreeing with me that it's immoral?
I'm disagreeing with your approach to it.
So you're saying those things are morally good?
It's all in the Bible.
Well, if I would have to go one by one and talk about each.
Is it morally good to hold women in an inferior status to men?
Who said that it's an inferior
Your
status?
Bible. Christ is the head of the church, is the same as the husband of the household. Women did not have the same rights that men have. Paul does not allow a woman to permit a woman to teach in church.
You're right. Good.
Yeah. Is that good? Is that good?
I do think the man should be the head of the household. I do think.
Then you are an immoral, unequal, sexist buffoon. You have given up equality in deference to your book. No wonder it's so difficult for you to say that slavery is immoral. It's so difficult for you to say that all the other things I listed are immoral.
Question without difficulty.
Yes, you managed to get the exactly wrong answer without difficulty. Congratulations. You are willing to sacrifice your humanity in order to appeal to a book that you know to be immoral. You just won't acknowledge it.
No, I just want to acknowledge your approach to it.
I'm telling you what the book says. Are you saying I'm wrong about what the book says?
I'm saying you're wrong in regards to things that you said about the book.
Does Exodus 21 allow people to own slaves as property and to beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days? Is that what Exodus 21 says?
Exodus 21 says it like that, but you're not saying it the right way.
Would you like me to read it to you so that you can deny it after I've read it?
I know the verse.
No, you don't. You either don't know the verse or you are lying about something else. Because I virtually quoted it verbatim.
I'm saying exactly, it says exactly that, just like you said, that one verse you were talking about, what you said you were talking about the you were talking about how sexuality and stuff.
Yeah, do you think homosexuals should be put to death? That they're deserving of death?
Well, Sully, in my opinion, I don't think they're deserving of death, but I don't think it's right. So is that a?
So you're saying you don't think they deserve death?
I'm saying in my opinion. I didn't say his opinion. His opinion is different.
Whose opinion?
Different.
Whose opinion?
If God says it's an abomination, right?
Right.
Well, God's wrong. It's that simple.
So who's wrong? You or God?
Well, obviously me, because mine comes.
You're wrong.
Not wanting to harm anyone.
So God says it's an abomination that deserving of death. You disagree with him, and you are saying that you're wrong.
I agree with it. That's an abomination, but in my opinion, I wouldn't kill them. But
the issue wasn't whether or not you killed him. It was the issue of whether or not they're deserving of death. Who's wrong? You or God? And if you're wrong, why aren't you changing your mind to be right with God? Didn't you say that you were a follower of Christ and were doing your best to do what God wants? How could you possibly sit here and suggest that God's right, but you're going to continue in your wrongness when your wrongness is actually better?
How would I continue in my wrongness because I haven't put anyone to death for it? So
I'm talking about whether you think they deserve to be put to death.
I mean, like I said, it definitely is an abomination. It's not right.
Why is it an abomination? What's it an abomination towards or from? What is it about two people? What is it about two people having sex that is an abomination?
Well, simply from the thing that you just don't seem to get, that at the end of the day, religious or not, it's someone's opinion solely. You can believe.
I don't care about opinions. If all we're going to do is talk about opinions, you're not talking about. You're claiming that the Bible is the inspired word of God, and I'm pointing out things that are objectionable, and you are not acknowledging it.
No, you're not acknowledging my right to the opinion, and you're not acknowledging.
I am absolutely acknowledging your right to have an opinion. I can also point out that your opinion is nonsense, that it is immoral. You can call in and say, it's my opinion that it's okay to beat and rape people, but your opinion would be still immoral still, wouldn't it?
And you can say that your opinion is that nothing comes from nothing, that nothing that comes from intelligent design, and I can say the same thing.
My opinion is you just represented a cartoon straw man of my views because you refuse to honestly defend your own to the point where you've put yourself at odds with God.
Well, I don't mind defending mine. I'm just saying that
you haven't defended a thing. You just blew it all off as opinion. God's got an opinion. You've got an opinion. I've got an opinion. Woo, look at all the assholes.
God. I mean, you can cuss all you want.
You're right. I can fucking cuss as all I want. It doesn't make any difference. Why would you bring that up? It's not relevant. Why can't you say that slavery is immoral? Why can't you say that homosexuality is not some kind of an abomination?
You really have you're not having any manners. When you have a dialogue or conversation, it's a back and forth. You're on the mic, so you're trying to control the conversation, but you're not being rude.
I think, Calvin, if you go back, we were more than patient with you, including giving you time to turn down the shit that was going on behind you after pointing it out twice. And when I've asked questions, I offered you a chance to respond. You just don't like it because when I pointed out problems with your book, you were faced with two possibilities. Holy crap, if I agree with him, that means I'm saying there's something wrong with the Bible. And I can't do that. So I better disagree with him, even if it makes me look like an immoral, inhuman person.
Well, this is the thing. I don't mind answering your questions. The only thing I mind is at the end of the day, even if we disagree about what you believe and what I believe, at the end of the day, we have our own belief system. So even if you don't believe what I believe, I'm still going to respect you and I'll still be respectful to you. And I only mentioned the cussing because what happened to good grammar. That's why I mentioned that. That's the only reason I even said that.
I respect your right to hold whatever view you want or you hold, but I don't respect your views. I will never respect the views of people who can't come out and simply say that slavery is immoral, who can't come out and say that women and men should be treated equally, who can't come out and say that, hey, if you're gay, it's not an abomination and you don't deserve to be put to death. I'm not going to respect those views, just like I don't respect the KKK, just like I don't respect fascists, just like I don't respect sexists, just like I don't respect rapists. If something is immoral, I'm not going to respect that view, even though you have a right to your opinion. Why are you willing to be immoral instead of acknowledging that your book is immoral?
Well, hold on, if that's just simple, because I'm start. But I mean, I'm not. You're saying like I'm being immoral.
You are.
But I mean, like I said, with all due respect, that's your opinion. Whatever you feel.
Correct. It's my opinion.
You told us that slavery is okay.
Yeah.
That's immoral.
I said
it's Don's opinion too, and I bet if I asked for a show of hands on the other side, I'd get a show of hands. But you know what? I don't need to do that because that's a self-selected audience full of godless heathens who came to watch the show. So why don't we just go to the United Nations Charter that denounces slavery? Why don't we go to the bulk of modern civilization that has fought against slavery and claimed that it's an abomination? You've got one thing that's an abomination, which you are not willing to denounce, and another thing that's not an abomination, which you are claiming is an abomination. You're not going to lecture me about morals and then preclude, oh, it's just my opinion. Well, who gives a rat's ass about your opinion?
I mean, you obviously don't. You're asking for it.
Correct.
Ain't no when I give it to you. I'm only saying like this. Okay, do I believe that people should still be sacrificing animals as repentance for their sins? No, but did it happen? Yes. Are we still under that? No.
Should we have ever done it? Should we have ever done it?
Should people have ever did things that done in this report? No. But with that same
Has slavery ever been moral?
happened,
See, here's the thing. This is where we're going to end, and I'm going to give you the last word, because you are now flagrantly dishonest. Because nobody brought up this idea of sacrificing animals, but your position is that people shouldn't do that anymore. But at one point in time they did. And my question was, should they have done it then? And your answer was not yes, they should have, or no, they shouldn't. It was, hey, people did stuff back then. Either answer the question that is presented to you or go away. Should they have sacrificed animals back then? I noted here that you specifically had some kind of response to why God reveals himself to some people and hides himself to others.
Yeah, my name's Sarah. Basically, it's a little bit complicated, but it's related to the problem of evil. So I'm going to go into that a little bit. Basically, if we go back to the Garden of Eden, you had Satan had convinced Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Well, and I will let you get through this, just for clarity. We have no reason to believe that happened, and Genesis doesn't say it was Satan. It says it was a serpent. It's only later revisions that apply that to Satan. But sure, we'll go with the mythology.
Okay, so basically in Genesis 2:16 and 17, God said that the punishment from eating from the tree was basically death. And Satan said, you'll certainly not die, for God knows that in the day that you eat from it, your eyes will be open and you'll be like God, knowing good and bad. So basically, Satan there was accusing God of withholding something that was good from his creation.
Seems like the serpent was the one telling the truth there, don't you think? Because they didn't die that day.
Well, see, this is what I'm going to get into. Because the Bible admits that when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, that so their eyes were opened.
Yeah, which affirmed what the serpent said.
Well, so this begs the question, does this imply that the tree had magical powers? And I would say no, the tree doesn't have magical powers. It was actually symbolic. When Adam and Eve decided to eat from the tree, they were essentially deciding for themselves.
So I could see the whole story as metaphorical or symbolic or whatever else. On the other hand, if you think this actually happened, then I don't know how you can write off a magical tree when you're talking about a serpent that spoke to Adam and Eve and told them what to do. I mean, where do you draw the line on? I mean, is the whole story just, did this not happen and it's just a metaphor for a fall from grace? Or
no?
So there were two people. Was there also a talking serpent?
There, the serpent that Satan was using.
Well, it doesn't matter who was using it. There was a talking serpent, right? So we're already in the realm of magic. So why, if you're in the realm of magic, why do you get to say that it's unreasonable to say that the fruit was magical?
I'm not saying it's unreasonable to draw that conclusion. What I'm saying is, from my own personal opinion, that is symbolic.
Okay, so that's symbolic, but the people in the snake weren't symbolic.
Correct. And the reason why...
Wait a minute. She said it wasn't a talking snake. Satan was rooting him, but I thought that was Satan's punishment to slither on the belly and things of that nature. I'm confused. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe that was after he tricked him that was the punishment. But he was already in the body anyway, so was it much of a punishment? He was already in it.
The tree was symbolic, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And later on, somehow he ended up evolving into his perfect form and walked up in God's meeting. He wasn't a snake no more.
I said the tree symbolized Adam and Eve's decision to decide for their own what was good and evil, and rather than relying on.
I've heard 100 different interpretations of this story, and Thomas Paine made a very good point in his Age of Reason that God would never use text to convey a message, and I think that this you're sort of playing into his argument that yeah, you can interpret this or interpret that or spin it this way and spin it that way and try to get to whatever conclusion you want to reach, but the story doesn't stand on its own very clearly because we're having to debate about interpretations.
Right, and
so it's a failure, right? Whoever wrote it failed at conveying the message they intended to fail because it's open to so much interpretation.
I'm not trying to prove that the story is true, and actually this plays a part into it too, is that it's not our job as Christians to prove things. We're here to plant seeds, and it's God's job to...
Actually, it's your job to give a reason for the faith that you have. So it is your job to prove things.
Right, exactly. So and the reason why God doesn't reveal himself to everybody actually has to do with the fact that this whole system, the reason why we have all the evil now is because during that incident, essentially what Satan was doing was calling into question God's sovereignty, his justice, his right to rule. So
what's that have to do with whether or not... So God reveals himself to some people, right?
Right.
Are there some people that he doesn't reveal himself to?
Yeah.
So why is God playing favorites? Does he not love everybody and want everybody to be justified in believing?
He's not playing favorites.
Absolutely. No. If I have two kids and I want them to pay attention to me and listen to me and do what I say, and one of them I never, ever interact with, and the other one has actually met me, that's me playing favorites.
Yes, but the situation isn't the same.
Okay.
The reason is because in order to prove that Satan was wrong in what he was saying, basically Satan was calling into question whether or not God's way of rulership was correct. And this goes back to
I still don't see what that has to. Okay, I still don't see what that has to do with why. Let's say I'm God, and Satan dares to call into question whether or not my way of ruling was correct. If I wanted to convince everybody that I existed and that I was real and that I was just, the best course of action would be for me to interact with all of them directly, because then they have firsthand experience.
Exactly.
So if I was a God and I chose to interact with some people and not interact with others, how could I ever condemn the people who I chose to not interact with?
God's not necessarily going to condemn everybody that he doesn't interact with. And the reason for this whole system right now isn't for God to prove that he's real, that he's good, that he has power, because if Satan had called into question God's power, his existence, that would have been easy to prove. That's not what Satan called into question. So the question that God has to answer is whether or not his rulership, his direction, is the right direction.
Yeah, in order to do that, first you have to demonstrate that he actually existed. But second of all, even if the God of the Bible were to come out and demonstrate to me right now that he was real, he'd still have a lot to answer for before I could ever respect him.
Right, and he's going to do that. The Bible says.
Why does she keep saying right?
The issue, though, is about whether or not belief is justified. And until he does that, belief isn't justified, and certainly reverence and respect and adherence isn't justified. So call me back after he does that.
Okay.
Because until then, I don't see how anybody could have good reason to believe.
The only people that really have good reason to believe are those to whom God reveals himself.
And how do they know that God's revealed himself? Because I was a fundamentalist Christian for more than 20 years, was studying to be a minister. If you'd have asked me at the time if I had experienced the Holy Spirit, I would have said yes. But I now understand that wasn't the case.
Most people who are Christians who have faith, God hasn't revealed himself to them. God revealed himself to a very, very select group, even in biblical.
So you're saying that most Christians believe for bad reasons?
Correct.
Okay. And how do you know that any Christians believe for good reasons?
I mean, I can't prove that to anyone.
How could anybody prove it?
My purpose here isn't to prove that. My purpose is to explain, like I said, why God only revealed himself.
Well, it's the only point of disagreement. We both agree that people believe for bad reasons, but you're saying that there are some people who believe for good reasons, and I'm asking how you know that.
I know that because I believe that, God has touched my life. And I know that that isn't sufficient for you, but it's sufficient for me. And that's why I'm not here trying to prove anything to you.
Could you be wrong?
Yeah, I could be wrong.
Cool.
I don't think I'm wrong.
I know you don't think you're wrong. So the question then becomes, if there's something that I could be wrong about, but I'm convinced of it, I can usually give the reasons, even if they're bad reasons, I can usually give the reasons for why I'm convinced. And if somebody were to look at those reasons and point out that they were fallacious, that they weren't sufficient, I would be able to accept that. And so when you tell me that you've got good reasons, all I was wondering was, what are the good reasons?
I mean, it's a matter of the things that have happened in my life. My life has been steered in a very specific direction.
How do you know that? I'll tell you, because I know plenty of people who think that their life has been steered, and not just by God, but by the fates or the stars or whatever else. And surely some of the people who you and I both would agree don't have good reasons also believe their life is being steered.
Because it has been consistent within my life that when I deviate from a certain path, I'm
I gotta go inside my app. This sucker cut off every app. I gotta see if it's a cap on the damn thing or something. That's weird.
Because it has been consistent within my life that when I deviate from a certain path, I'm always brought back onto that path.
Well, that's been my experience as well. When I start to behave terribly to other people, my life tends to get worse. Does that mean there's a God steering me towards better behavior?
And it's more than, you know, people treating me bad. It's more like, I don't know how to describe it. I guess I can't really describe it.
Well, the question is, how do you know that it's God?
I have faith that it's God.
Okay. Couldn't you justify any position by saying I have faith?
Yeah, well.
Which doesn't that mean that faith is not a good reason for believing?
I don't think so. I think.
Really? So if I tell you that I believe that white people are superior to black people, and that's a position I take on faith, you're telling me that I might have a good reason?
No.
Okay, so faith is not necessarily a good reason.
Not necessarily. It can be a good reason.
How can it be a good reason if faith can be used to justify a good position, a correct position, and an incorrect position equally? How do you tell the difference? So let's say, for example, instead, I said that I believe that white people are superior to black people because I rolled the dice and I rolled a 6. Would we agree that that's a bad and unreliable pathway to a true position?
Yeah.
Yeah. So faith is identical to that. You don't get to say that faith can be a good thing any more than you can say that rolling a 6 can be a good thing, a good way to a pathway to truth. You have to show that it's a reliable pathway to truth.
Well, faith is more than rolling the dice. Faith is also, you know, when applied correctly, it's based on, you know, your experiences in life. So
it's strange that you say applied correctly. I don't know how you would apply faith correctly. And from the Christian worldview, faith isn't even something you use. It's something that's given to you by God. It's not like it's a methodology.
And how does it change the reliability of faith?
There are people who are given faith by God, and there are people who are convinced.
So why would God give a useless gift to people?
Because it serves his purpose. His purpose ultimately right now is to prove his point. His point being that his way of rulership is the correct way of rulership.
I don't see him attempting to prove any point. How do you know that God's trying to prove a point?
The way he's attempting to prove it is the only way to prove that God's way is the correct way is by comparing it to all other ways of rulership without God. So that's what this whole system is about.
That's ridiculous. I don't have to allow every sort of rulership to be able to know which one is better than others. We can say right off the bat, without ever performing the experiment, that any rulership that cuts off the head of anybody who is a part of that system is demonstrably worse without ever actually having to do it. We can think about things and evaluate the consequences and extrapolate from knowns to unknowns. It's bizarre for you to claim that the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of everything has only one way of demonstrating that he's right, and that's to let everything fuck up everywhere around so that he can come out winning.
Well, you and I can justify that, and I can see where you're coming from with that, and I agree with that.
Yeah, why is your God stupider than I am?
That's not true.
He's not true.
That's not true.
So he understands the basics of epistemology, and he understands what should be convincing, and he understands what's right or wrong, but he can't reveal himself and explain it to people in a way that would bring understanding to people. If I created a simulation game and my simulations don't understand me, am I not a miserable failure?
Actually, this begs one of the questions that Satan had raised, because when he accused God of withholding something from his creation, you know, and he sort of did initially.
Yeah, so Satan was telling the truth.
Humans are inferior to angels. Angels are inferior to Jesus. Jesus is inferior to God. Therefore, there is a hierarchy of creation. And in order to prove Satan wrong, one of the things that God is doing is Revelation reveals that there's going to be 144,000 that are picked from the earth.
Okay, now you're talking about something that isn't happening, that hasn't happened, that you have no evidence for. You're just plucking numbers out of a book. You can't know that that's happening if it hasn't happened, right? So this is just another exercise in you having confidence that this will happen.
Yeah. Where do women and atheists fall on this pecking order?
What was that?
Where do women and atheists fall on this pecking order?
There have been people through history. Women. I don't see where you're.
Oh well, just as soon as you establish a pecking order, you can put yourself above everybody else.
I mean, according to the Bible, men are superior to women.
Right? You buy that?
I interpret this passage a little differently than other people.
Well, the man's the head of the household, the same way that Christ is the head of the church. When it comes to rights, the men are the ones with the rights. The women are traded around and become parts of harems, and you can sell off your daughter as a slave. Paul didn't permit a woman to teach in church. I mean, that pretty much establishes a pecking order.
You could stone them if they cheated too.
Yeah, of course. There's always an order. There is an order. There's,
Why? So according to the Bible, women would be at least marginally inferior to men, right? Do you buy that?
We don't buy that, just so you know.
Don's gay. According to the Bible, he should be killed. Are you okay with that?
No, actually, I'm a trans woman, so no, I don't.
Okay. Boy, I'm scratching my head here.
I wonder where trans women fit on that biblical pecking order. Because I'm pretty sure that from those archaic standpoints about men wearing women's clothes, which is, by the way, I'm talking about what the Bible says, not me, you're a woman, I'm cool with, I got all that. I support all of your rights, which makes me infinitely superior to the book that you're apologizing for. But anybody who did a little reading of the book that you're advocating for would put you even lower than cis women. And then, of course, anybody who slaves is lower than that. I mean, this is the thing, is what Don's talking about. If you start going this pecking order, and you're doing it all without any justification other than, well, this is my interpretation of the Holy Book.
It's an interpretation, I believe, that I have been steered to by God, essentially.
Okay. I don't see how anybody. I'm glad that
skipped over the part. God don't like you.
I really don't know what to say, because you think that you've been steered a certain direction by God, and this is something that you can't demonstrate. And I don't even know how you came to that conclusion.
And it's not even to your advantage.
How did you determine that it's not you steering you?
I guess I can't really say that I have proof for that. I mean, that's where my faith comes in. And like I said at the beginning, I admit to, a certain amount of faith, and yeah, that might be irrational. But
for me, it's all about caring whether or not my beliefs are likely to be true. And so I can't believe something unless there's not good reasons. And as soon as I recognize that faith isn't a good reason, then I can no longer use faith to prop up what I believe. I actually have to come up with good reasons. And when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to the Bible, when it comes to Islam, when it comes to any of the religions, not only do I not have any good reason to believe they're true, I'm not even convinced if they were true, they would be good things, because they advocate for so many terrible things within the holy books. And we know that religiosity doesn't make anyone a better person. And I'd much rather deal with the world here and now and how we interact and get along, and how we're going to make sure that people get equal rights and that people are treated fairly under the law, and that no religion, even if it were actually correct about some supernatural realm or what happens in an afterlife, should ever get preferential treatment over any other or irreligion.
Yeah, I don't advocate for, interfering with government and all that. In fact, I stay away from government because I don't believe that my beliefs should be dictated. So I separate myself from politics completely because of that. And I don't believe in pushing my religion on other people, trying to force other people into my religion. But it is my purpose still to, spread the good news. That's part of, what I feel I've been commissioned to do. And that, all about spreading the word, and it's not about proving anything. Proof is with God. I can't do that.
Well, I mean, you can give the reasons. You can follow 1 Peter 3:15 and give the justifications. Whether or not you're successful proving it's different. But really quickly, because I'm going to move on to some other callers, what is it that you think is the good news, as briefly as you can?
It's the kingdom of God. It's all about proving, Satan was a liar when he called into question God's sovereignty, right to rulership. So God's answer to that ultimately is going to be his kingdom, and that's where proof is going to be available to everybody.
So you can't talk about, so the good news is that you're convinced that something better will happen some other time, because Satan, who told the truth in the myth, was actually lying.
Yeah, I believe that good news is right around the corner. I know you don't accept natural, and you were just talking about the natural occurrences like earthquakes and stuff. But there's a storm brewing, with Trump and everything. I believe that everything is starting to come to a head, and things are going to shift drastically in the near future.
Okay. Thanks for no offense, but you hear those sort of vague predictions every single year from all sorts of people. And so basically you've called in to say you're convinced that the good news is that something better is coming that you can't demonstrate.
I mean, yeah, essentially. And for what it's worth, whoever picks up on that, God will, I believe, latch on to those seeds and do what he needs to ultimate reason why he interferes at all with the system. Because if he interferes too much, it's essentially him corrupting the data, and it's God's purpose of this experiment and not happen again. So
that's garbage. That's like a parent saying, I'm not going to do any parenting because that might corrupt the data. The fact is that a God could demonstrate to every single person on the planet that he clearly exists and what his intentions are, and not actually force anybody to follow along. Do you believe, you seem to believe that there's a Satan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you also believe the mythology that would say that Satan was one of God's angels?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Satan, in your view, knows absolutely about God's power and who he is and what he wants, and still chose to rebel. So that means there can be no problem with the God revealed.
And Satan didn't even get punished. He got a kingdom to rule over. There ain't no punishment.
To all of us, we would still have every opportunity to rebel.
And he's going to do that.
Well, when he does, call back. Thanks.
Okay.
God's going to reveal himself. What the fuck is taking so long? Jesus told some people there are some of you still standing here who will not taste death until all these things have come to pass. And 2,000 years later, now all of a sudden, hey, there was an eclipse and there's going to be another eclipse in 7 years. So that tells us, oh, hang on. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. There's a family member who, because the eclipse happened in North America and that's relevant to her, and then she finds out there's another one coming in North America in 7 years. That's the 7 years that the Bible talked about, except that there's also a full solar eclipse in 2019 and 2020. They just don't happen across Missouri. And there were 100 of them in the last century. There's going to be 100 of them in the next century. And oh my gosh, yes, we had one of the worst hurricanes ever and things are getting worse. But I think the odds are more likely that it has something to do with climate change than end times, considering you can go on government websites and find out the frequency of earthquakes and the frequency of hurricanes and their magnitude, and find out that, yes, while some things are happening that are worse, shit's been bad for as long as we've been keeping track of it. It's a bunch of cherry picking to say, oh, look how bad everything is, but it's going to get better. And then God will reveal himself. Well, until he does, our position is the only rationally justified one, that we are not warranted to believe it's God. If you say that later on God will reveal himself, cool. When that happens, we will then be justified in believing it. But when that happens, you don't get to say you were right all along, because you did not believe for good reasons. You believed for bad reasons. And you might as well have been predicting that you would win the lottery. And then if you do, claim that you were right all along. Getting lucky doesn't mean you are rationally justified in holding a belief.
Michael's calling from Illinois, and Michael is a theist, pronouns he, him, who says he has evidence for the existence of God. Hi, Michael, you're on with Promise and Matt. It would help if you tell us which God you have evidence for and then present that evidence.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I want to briefly clarify the subject of my call. I believe that there's evidence for the existence of God, and I think that it only takes one person throughout history to provide evidence for the veracity of something. One example I can give you, when you look at, for example, the gravitational force of the universe, it only took one person. It only took Galileo to provide evidence.
Can you just give us the evidence, though? Why are we laying out a whole preamble? Like, what God is it, and what's your evidence?
The reason I'm laying out the standards is because the evidence was provided by Jesus Christ, and he has a method that he provided as part of that evidence. So I laid out the.
Michael, all of this is wrong, and I can fix it really quickly. Galileo was not the proof of anything that Galileo claimed. The truth was supported by the evidence. It doesn't take a person to present evidence for the veracity of something. The veracity of something is verified by investigating and confirming the evidence for it. Additionally, you can't even demonstrate that Jesus existed or that we're attributing to Jesus is true. But when you call in and say you have evidence for God, and we say which God and what evidence, I don't need you to talk about Galileo, and I definitely don't need you pretending that one person demonstrates the truth of a proposition, because that is false. The person is irrelevant.
Okay, so let me go ahead and respond to your claim.
No. I want you to go back and tell me which God and what is the evidence.
Well, clearly I'm talking about the Christian God.
There's many Christian gods, but I'll take that.
Okay. Now, the second thing you mentioned, and I'm going to what I was initially saying, is that the process upon which you would assess the veracity of the gravitational theory it's replicable, and that's through the scientific method. I grant you that. And the argument that I'm making is that the proof for the existence of God is rooted in prayer, and that's the method that was established by Jesus Christ. So, as an atheist, if you want to verify, if you want to assess the evidence for the existence of God, the method is laid out in prayer. You're not getting.
So I need to talk to myself to get proof of God.
Through argumentation. So what you would have to do.
Michael, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
prayer doesn't work. We've already tested it. The Templeton Foundation has tested intercessory prayer. And do you think for a second that you're talking to two people who were Christians for decades, who are unfamiliar with prayer? Do you realize that I was not only a committed Christian, but was studying to be a minister? I'm well familiar with prayer. Prayer does not prove God. Prayer does not prove. Would you stop fucking interrupting me, Michael?
Are we going to have a back and forth, or are you just?
Are you going to stop interrupting me, Michael?
Go ahead.
Prayer in no way can demonstrate that a God exists. And if you think it can, you need to demonstrate right away how prayer can be used in a reliable method to confirm the existence of God. I'm waiting to hear that.
And that's the purpose of my call. When I said I had evidence, that's where I was going.
Go ahead and do it.
So,
okay, Michael, I've muted you. We've been on this call for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. At the beginning of it, I asked you which God and what evidence. You didn't say which God, and then you said something that's completely false. That one person throughout history is all that's needed to present evidence for the veracity of something. The number of people are irrelevant. It is the evidence that is relevant. Then we had a big long discussion about that. And then we get to you're advocating for some version of the Christian God and that prayer is the evidence. When I tell you, I need you to demonstrate a mechanism by which prayer can be tested and used to conclude reliably that a God exists, I need you to do that. I don't need you to whine. I don't need you to dissemble. I don't need you to start over. I don't need you to go back about, this is what I wanted to talk about. If you want to talk about it, or you're leaving. So how can prayer be used to show that a God exists? Go.
Because prayer is not a magic wand for solving the world's problems. Prayer is a definition.
That's not an answer to the question. Can you demonstrate for us right now how prayer is evidence for a God? Don't tell us what it's not. I want to know what it is and show us. If I had proof of something like that, I wouldn't say anything. I would just call in and demonstrate. So what is it?
Don't tell me what prayer is. Don't tell me what prayer is. Don't tell me what prayer. Okay, I'm going to mute you again because you don't know how this fucking works. You don't know how to have the basic human decency of a conversation. You don't know how to present evidence. You don't know how to present argument, which might explain why you're a believer and why you think that prayer proves God. But don't tell us what prayer isn't, and you don't even have to tell us what prayer is. Tell us how prayer can be used to reliably verify the existence of a God. Last chance.
Better yet, demonstrate it
by
now.
experiencing God. That's why 72% of the world population are Christians.
No, that's a fallacy. So 72% of the world population are not Christians. You need to go out and do some research. You might be thinking of maybe 72% possibly in the United States might be Christian, but not 72% of the world. However, you claim that prayer allows you to experience God. That's an assertion. You need to demonstrate that that's actually true. The fact that countless people are convinced that they experience God is completely separate from whether or not they're actually experiencing God. So how can we know that they are actually experiencing God?
So that's the empirical evidence of prayer. It's a personal experience. It's not
No, sir, I'm sorry, but personal experience does not demonstrate that there is a God. It is possible for someone, and many have, to think they're experiencing. Here, let me ask a simple question. I'll unmute you for this. Michael, is it possible for someone to think they've experienced God and to be wrong about that?
It is absolutely possible, though.
Cool. I don't need anything else. I don't need it. Yes or no questions have yes or no answers. And I'm asking that so I can get to the follow-up question. This is the important one. If two people come to me and say they've experienced God, how do I tell which of them is right, which of them is wrong, or maybe if they're both wrong? How do I tell?
You tell based on which one of them engaged in prayer.
No, sir, Michael, both of them prayed. So stop. I'm sorry that you're very confused. I genuinely am. If you listen, maybe we can unconfuse you because you are terribly confused. Two people prayed and told me that they experienced God. You already acknowledge it's possible for them to be wrong, which means they could both be right, both be wrong, or one could be right and one could be wrong. How can I tell which, if either of them, is correct? That's the question.
They're both right because they both prayed, and one of them not prayed, and one of them.
No, Michael.
Michael,
sorry. Go ahead, Promise.
Yeah, I want to ask you. So, Michael, prayer was really important to me when I was a Christian. I had a whole closet. I called it my prayer closet. I had Bible verses up all over the place. I had my worship CDs. Prayer was very important to me. I prayed regularly for hours at a time sometimes, and I did not experience a God. So is that evidence that a God does not exist? Because I did what you said. I did the praying thing. And if you're saying that this is how we determine if a God is real or not, then I think I did a pretty good job determining that God isn't real.
So what happens when people pray is they want answers to their problems. And it sounds like you had issues.
I didn't, Michael.
No.
So, Michael, I didn't. I did this when I was a child. I did it when I was a teenager. I did it when I was an adult. I wholeheartedly believed I just wanted to be close to God. I just wanted to be in his presence, and I wanted to devote my life. I was reading scripture. I was doing all the things scripture says to do, not because I was trying to get something. But I can look back and I can tell you that never once did I experience an actual God. So how is that not
And
evidence
how
that God
are you-
does not
how are
exist?
you-
Because if you're going to sit here on the phone and make the claim that people that pray and that get what they want, that means they experienced a God, and that's your proof of God, then how is my experience not in favor of the idea that a God does not exist?
Can I just briefly ask, how were you assessing that you didn't?
Can you answer my
experience
question? Can you answer my question?
that? Yes, I'm sorry. Just repeat it real quick because I was
No, Michael. We are tired of those of you calling in to make assertions and then half us. Why should we have to keep repeating the questions?
Because the word.
Why? Okay, you're going to interrupt me. I'm going to fucking mute you again, and you might stay muted for the rest of my life. Why should Promise, who thought and put together a question, who told you about her life experience that differs from yours? By the way, I've prayed and I thought I had experienced God. According to you, I can't be wrong about that. Only people who don't pray can be wrong, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. But I'm tired of us repeatedly repeating questions to people who are too fucking dishonest to pay attention, because that means you're not here for a real conversation. You just want to preach. Well, you can start your own fucking show to preach. You don't get our audience for that. So answer her question.
Yes. Okay. So you did experience God. You did experience God. You're not aware that you did.
Michael, that is the most dishonest thing I have ever heard. That's not a response to what I just said. I didn't experience God, and you can't sit here and lie and say something. You don't need to yell at me either, Michael. You can just stop talking and listen to what I'm saying. I just shared a very personal story with you, which is that I prayed for years and years and years of my life, and I did not experience a God. I didn't experience anything that could maybe be a God. I did not experience anything but my own presence, which is, in hindsight, cool. At least I got that out of it. That's my spin on it. But I'm asking you, how is my evidence that I did not sit with a God in prayer not as valuable as your evidence saying that you did? If I did what you said and I did not experience a God, how is that not evidence against the existence of a God based on your standard?
Because you're defining experience of God different than I am.
No. She just said, based on your standard. Did you not hear that?
My standard, as I mentioned, I just laid out my standard. My standard is consistent with the experience of Peter, who was beheaded upside down. And in that experience, he still.
Okay, Michael, I don't need you to say anything that's irrelevant. I need you to address what's actually been said here. And you seem to be incapable of doing that. So in order to make sure that my blood pressure remains and that I don't get another thing about how I'm being a dick to someone who is dishonest in conversation, we're going to let you go now. Have a nice Sunday. So when we get on the show, we got other theists. I'm gonna get right to them. I just want to put a little button on this, and then on the next call, I'm gonna back up and Promise you have this up, right? You have Call in Studio up so that you can mute whenever you want.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'm terrible at remembering to mute, but yeah.
It's fine. You may not need to. You may be fortunate that the next caller is someone that you can have a conversation with without ever muting them. But the problem with Michael is that Michael doesn't understand the difference between subjective experience and objective fact. And Michael thinks that I experienced God and I'm just unaware of it. Well, I'm sorry, Michael, but based on that structure of that argument, you basically put up this proposition: if someone prays and experiences God, therefore they did experience God. And so I thought that I experienced God, and now I think I was wrong. And if you're going to assert that I'm just wrong, that I don't understand it, then there's nothing to stop me from saying, Michael, you prayed and you think you experienced God, but you're just wrong. You think you experienced God, but you didn't. Just like you could look at Promise and say, Promise, you think you didn't experience God, but you did. Or Matt, you think you experienced God, which means you did, even though there's no evidence that I did, or that you did, or that Michael did. If you are only calling in because you have a subjective, esoteric definition of God, or a subjective, esoteric proof of God, we are not interested. I don't care. It'd be interesting to hear a story that, let's say, you believe because of the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. Cool. That's why I thought I believed. That's why William Lane Craig believes. Not the other reasons he gives. That's why he believes. The inner witness of the Holy Spirit. If you can't demonstrate the inner witness of the Holy Spirit objectively to somebody else, you have no evidence. You have a claim. You have a claim that you, in fact, experienced God, but you have no way to demonstrate that. That's not controversial. That's just a brute fact. Just like you may be experiencing horniness or hunger, but you have no way of demonstrating that to either. If I tell you I'm hungry and then I shovel food in my face so that it looks like I'm ravenous, does that mean I was actually hungry? Or maybe I just acted as if I was hungry. This is the problem of dealing with things that take place in other people's heads. It doesn't do us. Kendall in Seattle, you're on with Scott and Matt. How are you?
What's up?
Hi, Kendall.
You have a question for Scott, so I put you on so you could ask Scott your question.
Ooh. Sure. Okay, so if Christianity was proven true, would you become a Christian by repenting your sins in order to obtain salvation?
Yeah, that's a fair question, because part of the reason that I think Christianity can't be true is because you can't reconcile the idea of a perfectly loving God with the actions and behaviors attributed to that God in Scripture, right? So there's a bit of tension here. If I actually believed that everything that Scripture states, aside from the obviously allegorical stuff, is true, then I would have to come to the conclusion that that being is not a being worthy of worship or repentance. This is a being that, unthinkably, I am morally superior to. I mean, I haven't committed genocide, right? So that is tough. Yeah, I actually don't think that if I believed propositionally Christianity was true, I would become a Christian. I think I would just fall into a deep, deep despair for everyone I know and love.
Yeah, and my answer is pretty similar in the sense that if it were proven that there were a God, of course I would stop being atheist and I would believe that there's a God. But would I follow that God? And irrespective of whether it's the God of Christianity or Judaism or some other thing I don't know about, first of all, I think that the very notion of worship is something that could not be demanded or expected. It is either deserved or it's not by character. And the type of being that would demand worship and reverence cannot be deserving of it. So I would not follow or be reverent towards or worship a God like that. But if it turns out it was like the God of the Bible and he just showed up and said, hey, I'm Yahweh and let's talk. And he finally, decided to not be a coward and show up and interact with me the same way he supposedly showed up and interact with other people, he'd have a lot of explaining to do before he'd have an ounce of my respect. So while I could definitely believe anything that's demonstrated, whether or not I would live my life by the strictures of some God is, it's like saying, once I'm convinced there's a king, does that mean that I do whatever the king says I should do? And I don't know. Maybe I'd probably just be a revolutionary.
Kendall, if it helps at all, I have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is called Theoretical Bullshit. And I have a video on that channel that you can Google right now and watch it if you like. It's about 9 minutes long, and it's called "And What If I'm Wrong?" And I think I'll do a more thorough treatment of that answer that here. So that might tell you my position.
That answer the question, Kendall?
Yeah. I mean, sort of. I mean, I guess my response is like, I specifically said if Christianity was true. So when you say and talk about morality and all that, and you have a problem with that, and that's why you would say no still. And I'm just thinking like, well, wait a minute. If it's true, then it's true that he is objectively moral.
No. So yeah. Here's the problem with that. If Christianity is true, then moral means something very different than what I think it means now. If Christianity is true, moral is synonymous with obeying God's commands or being consistent with God's nature. And that's all morality can mean. I mean, by definition, that's what good means. Good means consistent with God's nature, right? So if God's nature is one of cruelty, then that means cruelty is moral. If God's nature were one of dishonesty, then that means dishonesty is moral. I don't value those things. I don't care what label you put on them. If you want to call them moral, then I'm not interested in being moral, right? What I'm interested in is human suffering and well-being. Well, not just human, but the suffering and well-being of conscious creatures. And the God of the Bible does not seem terribly interested in that.
There's a reason that Scott and I gave you longer answers, because in your mind, when you say, if we assume Christianity is true, that means you've got a morally, objectively perfect, loving God, etc. The truth is, there are many different varieties of Christianity that have many different doctrines, and that while all of them would say that God is moral, that doesn't mean God is moral. And the only thing that I have in all of the universe to judge the character of the God of Christianity is the Bible. And the Bible sanctions slavery. The Bible sanctions misogyny. The Bible sanctions second-tier status for women with regard to property. It has rules against things that aren't necessarily immoral, like prostitution and homosexuality. It has a number of things that I would say any being that advocates for that does not understand what it means to be good and does not care about humankind, human suffering, or the well-being of thinking creatures. You begin with, it's true, it's good, there's God, God must be good. Well, before we can determine that God is good, God's got a lot of explaining to do as to why he either did or sanctioned the things that the Bible supposedly says he did or sanctioned, or why he allowed that book
that portrays him as someone who did or sanctioned those things to persist unchallenged for the entirety of history, from the time it was written until now?
The short answer is, if Christianity is true, then being moral, that is to say, following God's commands, is a bad idea. It's bad for me, it's bad for other human beings, it's bad for all sentient creatures everywhere. So being moral, ironically, becomes a bad thing. I don't want to be moral, given the definition if Christianity is true.
Well, I mean, Scott, come on now. When did Jesus say slavery was good and all this stuff?
Hang on. Kendall, is Jesus God in your view?
Well, if Christianity is true, then yes.
Okay, so have you read Exodus 21, where God gives instructions to Moses about slaves?
Is that New Testament?
No. Why does it matter?
What are we talking about? We're talking about Jesus and his moral character.
No, sir. You don't get a New Testament without an old one. You don't get a Jesus without the 10 Commandments. Are you throwing out the 10 Commandments? Are you throwing out Genesis? Are you throwing out Exodus?
No.
Okay, then stop asking me whether it's in the New Testament. Have you read Exodus 21?
Yes, I have, but
and doesn't Exodus 21 No, Kendall. In Exodus 21, doesn't God sanction slavery?
What do you mean by sanction?
Does God suggest that it is okay for human beings to own other human beings as property, pass them on to their children, and beat them as long as they don't die within a couple days? Is that what's in Exodus 21?
I want to be clear. I want to understand what you mean by sanction. Are we talking about, because there's a difference between allowing.
Why are you dancing around it?
Okay,
I want to understand this.
Kendall, if I say to you,
it was God's instruction.
The bag of chips in my cabinet, in my cupboard. You may have the bag of chips, and that's what we mean by sanctioning. Okay, you may do this. Does God say you may?
Okay.
And so in Exodus 21, does God allow slavery?
He allows a certain form of slavery that isn't like what we understand.
Actually, Kendall, in Exodus 21, God allows two different types of slavery because there's different rules for Jewish slaves than there are for non-Jewish slaves. Jewish slaves have a completely different set of rules at the beginning of Exodus 21 than non-Jewish slaves. Jewish slaves can only be held for 7 years unless you trick them into becoming slaves forever. Non-Jewish slaves are your property to be passed on to your children. And does Exodus 21 say you can beat slaves as long as they don't die within a day or two? Yes, it does. Do you think that's moral?
We have to define what we mean by slavery.
Do you think that beating people is moral?
It is not moral. I agree.
Congratulations, you're better than your God, you're better than your Bible, and I wish you had been honest enough to actually acknowledge that from the beginning. Because it's embarrassing to have people like you call in and do, oh, well, Christianity and God's good. And then when I bring up something, you're like, is that the New Testament? It doesn't make any fucking difference if it's a New Testament, if you believe that God is responsible for the Old Testament as well. And in the Old Testament, he sanctions beating people as long as they don't die within a day or so, which you would say is immoral, which I would say is immoral, but your God is okay with.
All that, but I guess that's the show, but...
That's not the show, it's your fucking book. It's not the show, it's your book.
No, that's just you. That's just you. You're not even allowing me to explain what that we're not on the same page.
I have 5 Bibles sitting right next to me. Do you have a preferred Bible version you'd like me to fucking read from? No, Kendall, this is not going away. Kendall, do you have a preferred Bible version? Are you saying I'm wrong about what the Bible says? Am I wrong?
You're wrong about what it's allowing. If you're defining slavery as mistreatment and forced labor, you're saying that at any point that the Bible allowed that, those two definitions, if we agree that those two definitions of slavery.
Sir, if God gave Moses the instructions on how to do this shit, he's allowing it. He's sanctioning it. He's saying it's okay. Why is that so hard to comprehend? You can ask any Christian that same fucking question, and they're going to give you the same song and dance. You may even hear indentured servitude. Like that ain't slavery.
The definitions are included in slavery. If you tell me that the Bible allows that, I'm saying it absolutely did not ever.
Then you don't know your Bible, and you've never read it, and you don't understand it, or you are blatantly lying about it. I'm going to read it to you now, and I'm going to put your ignorant ass on hold, on mute, while I read the passage that we're talking about. I'm going to read just from the King James Version, so that people don't think that, because this is the authorized AB 1611 version, and if men strive and hurt, oops, that's the wrong verse. We'll go down a little bit. I don't have this highlighted. You know why? Because this is my Bible from when I was a child. And while I have things highlighted from chapter 20, I don't have anything at all highlighted from chapter 21 because like you, they never preached from this chapter. But it begins with, now there are ordinances which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years shall he serve, and in the 7th year he shall go out free for nothing. And if he came in by himself, he'll go out by himself. If he was married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master has given him a wife and she is born in sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. In case you don't understand what that's saying is, if you buy a Hebrew slave and you give him a wife, after 6 years, the Hebrew slave has to go free, but the women and children that he's married to and sired stay with the master. And so that upsets a particular circumstance, so that if the servant plainly says, hey, I love my master and my wife and my children and I don't want to go out free, then the master shall bring him before the judges. He shall bring him to the door, under the doorpost, and his master shall bore a hole in his ear. It's not gruesome, it's like piercing your ear, to mark your property. And he shall serve him forever. Then it continues on down a little later, talking about you shall buy your slaves from the heathen that surround you, that you can pass them on to your descendants. And that if a man punishes his manservant or maidservant, he should be given their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. That's for the ox. I lost it.
Hey, can I actually ask? I just want to ask Kendall if you could unmute him for a second.
Of course.
Just so we're all clear on this, okay? So Kendall, what are the defining features of American chattel slavery, which we all agree was abhorrent? What are the defining features of American chattel slavery?
Well, I'm glad you wanted an actual conversation, Scott.
I swear if you pull a snarky thing like that again, I'll hang up on you, whether Scott wants to talk to you or not.
And I don't want Matt to hang up on you, so just talk to me.
I gave you the answer.
Well, tell me again, what are the defining features of American chattel slavery? Treating people like property is one, right?
Yeah, mistreatment.
Mistreatment.
That's one.
Okay, wait.
That's one.
Hold on. So even a slave master, so if somebody treats somebody well, it can't be slavery? Wait, we're talking about treating humans as property, right? That's the #1 defining feature of chattel slavery.
Yeah, mistreatment and forced labor. Against their will. Those are the two things.
Forced labor against their will. Do you agree with me that treating human beings as property is an essential feature of American chattel slavery and one of the reasons it was so wrong? Do you believe that a human can ever, under any circumstance, be treated as property?
If you mean against their will, and when you say property, absolutely
Jesus
not.
Christ, how could you be a willing slave? Let's stop with that. Let's stop with the against the will.
Why? That is the central feature. You gotta be kidding me.
Okay, no, here's the thing,
slavery.
Kendall,
that doesn't mean they're slave owners.
Kendall, will you willingly be my slave under the rules of Exodus 21?
Guardian stewardship? Yeah, I would. But
cool, so I get to beat you.
Guardian,
I get to beat you as long as you
guardian stewardship, not slavery. Guardian stewardship. Like this shit is so they had adoptions back then. What the fuck? These niggas just be reaching for that damn book.
Well, that's right.
No. Okay, let's explain that. Can I address that? Or are you just gonna just not like
Wait, hold on. No. Wait, before we get to that, I'm sorry. This is we're dancing around. The elephant in the room here is Leviticus 25. It's not Exodus. Can I read you Leviticus 25?
Go ahead.
All right, here we go, Kendall. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them, you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and make them slaves for life, but you may not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. Now that sounds a lot like American chattel slavery to me. We bought our slaves from the nations around us. We treated them like property. We inherited them to our children who could make them property for life. And then as Matt says in Exodus, we were allowed to beat them. We couldn't beat them too. There were actually laws against beating them too harshly. Just like, so we've got Israel and we've got America. It's the analogy is almost perfect.
All right. Okay, can I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so when it says promised forever, when you talk about Leviticus, it's not the services of each individual bondsman, because human beings do not live here on this earth forever.
Oh my fucking God. Do you read Hebrew at all?
Can I explain?
No. I'm muting you again because I'm not going to let you explain things.
Also,
because you're being dishonest in this because you don't know. If you read Hebrew, metaphorically forever, that they will become your property to be passed on, doesn't mean forever as in eternity. How dare you try to suggest that the Bible doesn't say that they're your property for life because nobody lives forever? How dare you? It's embarrassing. Keep going.
Let me finish.
Yes, because you said something that was abhorrent, so I'm going to interrupt you and correct it. Now you can continue to say abhorrent things.
Oh, God. Go ahead.
It's a session of individuals, okay, that it is said they shall be bondmen forever, okay?
That's not what Leviticus 25 says. Leviticus 25 says make them slaves for life.
Not 4546 says they're your inheritance for your children. They are your property.
Yes, it's bondsmen. It's bondsmen forever. They're not. They're talking about shall be for each individual bondsman.
Yes, bondsman forever. That's slave forever.
Yes, that's what I meant. For that bondsman, yes.
Yes, they are slaves forever. What are you not understanding here?
One thing you gotta know, I'm a slave master for life. Oh, what slaves want, what these slaves want from a nigga.
Agreeing with us that they're slaves forever, that you can pass on your children as property. It literally says it. Scott just read it to you.
You want me to finish? Okay, it says shall be your bondman forever. Yes, bondman forever.
Yes, that's slave.
Does that say that?
Oh my God. Do you realize that the Bible wasn't written in English, right? Yes. You do realize the Bible was not written in English?
Yes.
Do you understand Hebrew?
Do I understand Hebrew?
Do you read and understand Hebrew?
No, I don't understand.
Then this conversation is over because you are not qualified and you're reading an English word and making an absolutely embarrassing conclusion from it because what the Hebrew...
One more thing.
Okay, one more thing and then you're done.
Okay.
I want to be as fair as possible. Please say something else important.
The year of Jubilee marked the beginning.
Maverick, is it Minnesota?
Yeah, you betcha. It's really good here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't believe that for 1 second, Maverick. Can we get back to seriousness?
Yes, your skepticism is justified. All right, so I think knowledge of world wrongness is evidence for theism. But to explain that, I should explain. What's that?
Knowledge of moral wrongness.
Yeah, that we have moral knowledge. Knowledge that there is such a thing as moral wrongness. Like, for example, it's morally wrong to torture an infant just for fun. We know that, for example.
Okay. What about the areas where you think something's morally wrong and I don't agree?
Well, that would be a disagreement, but that wouldn't show that we don't know that anything is morally wrong.
No, I agree. But let's say that you and I agree that torturing an infant for fun is immoral. How does that, if you're convinced that that's immoral and I'm convinced that that's immoral, how does our shared convincement point to a go?
Well, the shared convincement doesn't. It's the knowledge that something is morally wrong that does. And explain that.
What do you think by knowledge?
Knowledge, like properly justified true belief.
Yeah, that's not the usage of knowledge I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, you and I both believe that torturing an infant for fun is morally wrong, right?
Well, I'm not sure that's true because I've seen atheists and theists talk past each other on what morality means.
Sorry, Maverick. It doesn't matter what you've seen.
I don't like watermelon, but I like some chicken.
Atheist, you said.
Okay.
Hang on. You said that torturing infants for fun is morally wrong.
It's 2025. Black people with sense aren't offended by stupid shit like that. I'm just saying, I don't know what you expected, but nah, unbothered. Come with something else. Let's see what you got. Maybe you can trigger me. I doubt it, but let's see what you got.
Yeah.
And so do I. So now we can say, and Paul, do you believe that?
I do.
So cool. All three of us are convinced that torturing an infant for fun is morally wrong. How does that point to a gun?
Well, first I should explain what I mean by moral wrongness, because I've seen atheists and theists talk past each other.
Okay. Maverick, this would be a lot easier if you just answer the question. I've done this a dozen times, but I'll stop. How does the fact that the three of us agree on a moral question demonstrate that it's a gun, that there is a gun?
Well, I never said it does. I didn't say that an agreement does.
You said moral knowledge is evidence for theism.
Yeah, not moral belief.
The three of us, okay. Paul, do you know that torturing a child for fun is immoral?
Well, I know that for me, morality has to do with reducing harm and increasing flourishing. And I can evaluate whether or not torturing a baby for fun increases suffering and decreases flourishing. So I can evaluate that. And I can then have confidence that based on my perception of reality and my perception of morality, that would be an action that would be against the things that I consider to be moral. So yes, I would under that definition, I would know that this was wrong.
And similarly,
yeah, that's not the definition of moral wrongness that I'm using though. So I think of these.
I don't accept your definition of moral wrongness then.
Okay, so because my definition of moral wrongness is where it's that type of ought that does not have only descriptive qualities. So kind of like the hop that David Hume seemed to have in mind with his ought distinction. So you don't believe in that type of moral wrongness.
I'm not even sure what you're talking about. We have beliefs about whether something is immoral, whether something is morally wrong. All three of us are convinced of this, and you're saying that moral knowledge isn't the moral knowledge you're talking about.
Well, perhaps if you give me an opportunity to explain what I mean by moral wrongness, it might become clearer. So an action is morally wrong for someone only if they ought not do it, but we can use words like ought and should in a couple different ways. So in some cases, the word ought is reducible to something purely descriptive. So for example, if you want to do well in school, you ought to study just means something like as a matter of practice, you need to study to do well in school. But then there's that type of ought that prescribes in a way that is not purely descriptive. For example,
I don't know what the fuck he's saying.
This type of ought. This is the type of ought I'm using in my definition of morality, that type of ought that does not have only descriptive characteristics. Like, in Hume's is ought distinction.
And we reject that ought, so convince us why we're wrong.
Oh, to explain why moral wrongness in the sense that I define it exists?
No. Ought, just on the ought. Just tell us why we're wrong about being the ought.
So you believe that sort of ought that I'm using my definition of morality does not exist. Is that correct? And you want me to explain?
It's nonsensical in my view, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know if there is a way I can convince you this type of moral wrongness exists.
Forget moral wrongness. I'm talking about the ought.
Well, no, I'm baffled when somebody says, I don't know if there's any way to convince you. Well, you became convinced. So what convinced you? Why isn't your reason good enough for us?
Good question. So when I was growing up, what convinced me is people kind of use this type of ought into their kind of moral semantics. And I just reflected on my moral experiences. Yeah, it does seem like, torturing atheists just for fun is something that people ought not do in that type of ought. I'm relying on my experience for that. Now, maybe not everybody has that type of experience. It's like trying to explain the color blue to a colorblind person. Can I convince them that this color exists? And just be telling them? Well, perhaps I can.
Is torturing babies for fun as arbitrary as blue?
Well, I didn't say it was arbitrary. You just asked me, how did I know that this type of ought exists? I said,
I think you think this ought is true because you failed to think it through very far. Because the ought you seem to be describing is you would be able to think it through. Why is torturing a baby for fun wrong? And you'd be able to think through, well, the ramifications are because it would harm someone, not because of an end determination of evaluating what would happen if this action came to be, right? It's not a divine fiat necessary.
I didn't say what.
Flash forward. Well, that seems to be what you're advocating. Am I wrong?
No, that's not what I was advocating here. I said, my original claim that this type of moral knowledge of moral wrongness is evidence for theism, but I didn't advocate my command theory. And we seem to be discussing whether this type of moral wrongness exists.
You've missed my point there, or perhaps I expressed it in a way that led you to think I was talking about divine command theory, which I absolutely was not. You seem to think that there is an ought that can be absent a goal, right? So you gave the example of if I want to do well in school, which is a goal, then you ought to study. You are advocating that there is another use of the word ought that is divorced from goals. Are you not?
Reason giving independently one's goals, yes, that's sometimes referred to as the characteristic of morality.
Matt, did that make sense to you?
I'm playing chess.
Okay, fair enough. So you ought to explain to me, as best you can, how that there can be an ought divorced from goals.
It's that type of ought that does not have only descriptive qualities. It's that type of ought that would be that way.
Give me an example that isn't morality related.
I don't know if it's the type of ought that is not morally related.
Adam in Illinois, you have a question for us.
Yes, hello, thank you. I'm a first-time caller. I've never watched a show before.
Okay, this will be easy.
This is really cool.
So the question that it says you're asking is there any logical reason to be an atheist? Are there good scientific, factual, philosophical reasons for your position? That's your question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The reason I'm an atheist is because no God claim has ever met its burden of proof, period.
no God claim has ever met his burden of proof.
Yes, no one's ever proved that there's a God, and until that happens, there is not sufficient reason to believe there is one. Just like I don't believe in Bigfoot or fairies or unicorns, because there isn't sufficient evidence. And until that changes, the default position is to not believe that God exists until there's good reason to believe that God exists.
Unicorns are in the Bible.
But you're wrong. That's just a fact. That's not even a dispute. That until something is demonstrated to exist, it is not reasonable to believe that it does, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, that's it. That's all we're saying. God hasn't been demonstrated to exist, and so we don't believe he does.
No, you didn't say that. You said a claim.
Yes, I fucking did. I've been doing this for 15 years. This may be your first call, but it's not mine. I do not believe that a God exists, and the reason for that is that no God claim has met its burden of proof.
Okay, so in the Bible it says if a cloud is full of rain, it pours itself out upon the earth. It says whether a tree falls toward the north or toward the south, where the tree falls, there it shall be. Is that
Adam, what does this have to do with the God? I do not give one flying fuck what the Bible says, especially when it's talking about trees.
This is a claim. It claims that whether a tree falls toward the north or toward the south, where the tree falls, there it's going to be.
But what the hell does that have to do with a God?
Oh, well, the Bible is the word of God, right?
No.
What does that even mean?
No. You have to demonstrate that the Bible is the word of God. You don't get to claim it's the word of God.
That's why I said allegedly.
Well, I don't care about allegedly. I care about demonstrably. That's the thing. Allegedly, there are thousands of gods, right?
Yeah, and if the claim you're trying to make here is here's a true thing that the Bible said, okay, well, there's lots of books that have some true things in them and some false things. That doesn't mean that, they're always going to be one and the same.
Right, and that's where you got to sift through all the truth and all the not truths.
No, you don't sift through the truths and not truths. You find evidence and you demonstrate it. Do you have evidence that can demonstrate the truth of your claim that God exists?
Sure. The two main arguments you probably already know, that's the intelligent design argument and the moral argument. You know those ones?
So first of all, those are...
Candy, unicorns are in the Bible, as well as the talking donkey from Shrek. I'm not bullshitting. It's a talking donkey in the Bible as well. An ass.
Of arguments that have individual arguments. Adam, let me do you a favor. You are not equipped. Did somebody put you up to calling into the show? Because you are not equipped for this.
I disagree, but what you're getting at?
I asked if you had a way to demonstrate that a God exists. And what you're citing is arguments, but those arguments are flawed, as we've demonstrated over and over again. Do you have an argument you'd like to demonstrate? Because Dan can pick it apart.
Sure. The intelligent design argument is if you see a building, like a building, you know that there was a builder, even if you never saw the builder.
No.
How would you know that? Well, the building pop out of the ground.
No, sir. Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Well, it's just, okay, so the thing with the buildings, right, is I've seen how construction works, and like we can observe these methods happening. And so it might be most reasonable for me to, assume that human beings built a building, because I've only ever really seen human beings build buildings outside of natural structures that, other animals have created and stuff like that, right? I've never seen a God do anything, period. I've never actually seen that happen. So it's not reasonable for me to conclude that a God has done anything, because I don't know what a God can do, and I don't know what they can't do, and I also don't know if they're even there, right? So they have to be there first for us to even say anything about it.
You don't even get to call something a building until you can demonstrate that it is in fact a building. So imagine for a second that you have a creek flowing through your backyard, and one day you go out there and the creek is dammed up with sticks and mud. Did that happen naturally, or did a beaver do that? And how can you tell the difference?
So how you can tell it? I want to address your other points, but the sticks and the dams, that could be a beaver, could be the river doing that.
I understand it could be both. That's why I said, how do you tell the difference? Right.
But yeah, how could you tell a book made itself?
Stop trying to come up with a counter argument and answer my question. How do you tell the difference between a natural dam of sticks and wood and mud and a beaver dam? How do you tell the difference?
I don't think I could tell the difference.
Really? So
you can see the beaver building it.
There's nothing you could do to figure out whether or not it's a beaver dam or a random. Then how the hell did you determine that reality is most likely created by God? If you can't tell the difference, because I can tell the difference between a beaver dam and a random assortment of sticks and mud.
A book could not make itself by chance. Monkeys aren't going to make it. Beaver's not going to make it. A river.
You're not listening at all. Your brain has hit that stalled point where it's just now you want to go on to the next thing in your script. Please don't do that.
One point at a time, but you're not listening.
No, sir. I'm listening, and Dan is listening, and we've heard this over and over again. The problem is that we're asking the questions that are supposed to help you understand the problem, and you're not even trying. You just gave up. You can't tell the difference between a beaver dam and something that looks like a beaver dam, right? You can't think of any way to test or investigate that.
Well, I mean, if there's a bunch of river sediments, if it looks like the water rushed it together, then you could point to that. If there's no beavers in the location, then you wouldn't blame it at work because there's no beavers in the location.
But if a beaver built it, don't you think maybe we'd find evidence that it's maybe hollow on the inside, that it's a den, that there's beaver footprints there, that there's beaver tail prints on there, that we could set up a camera there and watch and see if there's a beaver, and yet you just gave up.
Well, no, you can do all those things, but but now what you're doing is you're just throwing arbitrary information in there that what you didn't give me to start with.
No, sir, I'm not throwing any arbitrary information in. I asked you how we could tell the difference between a dam that was intentionally constructed by a beaver and one that just naturally formed due to water flow. And you gave up. There's a reason for that.
Then I said you could look at
Adam, stop. There's a reason I asked that question. How do you tell the difference between a universe that was created by a god and a universe that came about by natural circumstances?
Well, the first one, that the universe came about by the universe came about by natural circumstances, is impossible.
No, it's not.
It's just simply
how did you determine it's impossible? You couldn't even tell the difference between a beaver dam and some mud and sticks, and now you've determined that it's impossible for a universe to form naturally? How did you do that? What is your field of expertise here? Because so far, nobody else in the world has been able to determine that.
Well, no, lots of people have. It's just
no, lots of people claim that it's impossible. Nobody's been able to demonstrate that it's impossible. You know why? How many universes do we have to investigate?
Just the one.
Just the one. And so until we have another one to compare it to, see, that's what's needed. You need to be able to compare a beaver dam to a bunch of sticks and mud. And when you compare the two, you can see the differences between them. You can't do that with the universe, can you?
No, and you don't need to do that.
You don't need to do that. How did you demonstrate that it's impossible?
Well, on your universe question, how could you, if there's only one God, then how could you prove God if you can't compare him to anything?
No, that's not the way it works. There's only one me, but I can prove that I exist. Yeah. You fatally misunderstand this thing about uniqueness. With only one universe, we can't compare it to determine what the likely explanations for the existence of the universe are.
I got peaches and plums.
No, you can rewind because I'm. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, an analogy I like to make with stuff like this is if I have a field and I have a ball in my hand and I throw that ball, and I don't really think I'll just throw it, and we can look at where that ball lands. We can say, oh my goodness, wow, what are the chances that this ball landed right at this spot? Wow, this is really crazy, really incredible. Nobody really thinks that way because, well, the ball's going to end up where it ends up. It's only when we think that there's an intention involved, then that becomes more impressive. If there was a target in the field and I threw the ball and I hit it, you could conclude that I was aiming for that target. But what happens with these kinds of arguments is the ball is already in the field and we're painting the target underneath the ball, right? Because we're already here. We have a bias because we're existent beings in the universe and we're these thinking monkeys that think that we're really important and really special out here in the middle of nowhere, universe-wise, and think that, oh, well, there must be some reason why we're here. This is just too crazy. This is just too much of a coincidence. But the fact is, we haven't really had any reason to believe otherwise. In terms of the cosmic intentions as to why we're here, as a design.
Okay, I'm getting bored and a bit sleepy, y'all. I'll be back tonight with the Chelsea video. To the next episode. We out. Never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Nigga talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Now he bleeding, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 limp biscuit. All my niggas wildin', they done labeled us some misfits. Wake up every morning, 2 or 3, 5 in the thick bitch. Oh shit, didn't nobody come to see you old, it's some focus. Shoot 100 shots, no reloaded. Master of the game, you would think I'm into coded. Memphis niggas spit this pimpin', mackin' like I'm golden. Ho, with my money, you gon' turn me to the old me. Stay high, first class flight, I'm in the nosebleed. Pop it, cook it, whip it, ship it, till you count the proceeds. OG, I've been moving back niggas since 03. Low key, niggas hating cause they don't want no beef. State gang, true sippers, bitch, I bet we gon' eat. Get jammed, get a lawyer, make it bunny, don't speak. Pour up, oh, I need some more, nigga had a long week. Shout out to my plug, he showed me love, he out in Long Beach. I'm true geek, walking by myself but left with two freaks. Ooh, we, nothing in they mouth and on they booty. Austin Power swag, yeah, baby, this is groovy. You can call me money boy, or you can call me nudie. Hood niggas, churches, chicken, let me get a two-piece. Top down, two-seater, let me feel the two breathe. Gotta hold it steady, chopper, kick it back like Bruce Lee. Lately I've been in the zone, I guess I'm in my 2-3. Don't call my phone for nothing less than a QP. Feeling like the Migos, cause my bitch is bad and bougie. All my haters love me, all these bitches is some groupies. Came a long way, I like to introduce the new me. Standing on business like I'm king or like I'm Drewski. Call me Ron Island cause I like my love for choosy. When we link it's a movie, she bustin' like a Uzi. I love the way she do me, I beat it up like Uzi. She dancing just like Suki. Call me Ron Island cause I love my love and choose it. When we link it's a movie, she bustin' like a Uzi. I love the way she do me, I beat it up like Uzi. She dancing just like Suki. I never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Niggas talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Name pleading, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 Limp Biscuit. Never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Nigga talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Name pleading, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 Limp Biscuit.